Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 519. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
And my name is Zach.
And we're here to talk about movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so.
How's it going, Kyle?
You threw off my game.
Tell us, how's it going? Tell us.
I'm doing wonderful.
Great.
I had a great weekend.
Awesome. What'd you do? What was so great about it?
I took my son to see a movie today, the first movie he has seen since the pandemic began.
Wow.
In a theater.
In a theater, yeah. Yeah, no, sorry, kid. If you're not seeing a theater, you're not seeing a movie at all.
He's watched a couple from the back of the couch.
Yeah.
Unless
yeah.
the CDC allows no masks, you get no movie.
Fauci said, no movies for you, kid. Sorry.
What did he watch? Let me guess.
You're not going to guess it, but go for it.
I know
It was in
it.
a theater.
Rio 2.
No.
Oh, it's not something that just got released. It's a throwback film.
No, it's not a throwback. It's
The Godfather was out this weekend. Was it The Godfather?
we saw The Godfather. I
He
just
loves
introduced him
horses.
early. In oranges, horses and oranges. He doesn't shut up about them. So I'm like, this is a perfect movie for you. And fish, and cannoli,
Sure.
and toll booths, and James Caan. He's a big James Caan fan.
Is he he's a conhead?
I mean, he's watched Elf, so he's definitely aware of James Caan.
Con Air.
Wouldn't that be?
The big con.
That's gotta be. That has to be like the SNL skit that never happened. I wish in the late '90s James Caan hosted SNL, and they had a sketch called Con Air, and it was him plus every sketch member doing their James Caan impression, and it'd just be like a plane full of James Caans. They kind of do that now with like the Jim Carrey family reunion sketches. So.
Kyle, you're not allowed to use this show as your SNL audition tape. For the
Well, I know
writers'
that
room.
Lauren's a big listener.
Isn't James Caan like one of the few out conservatives in Hollywood? Isn't that James Caan? Isn't he like the guy who shows up to the Republican National Convention and stuff like that? He's one of them. One of the
Really?
few. I think
No
so.
idea. No clue.
If he's one of them, then he has not been very active in the last decade.
No, I mean he was like hardcore Trump guy. He was
Really?
he was like at the convention for Trump and stuff like that. Yeah.
I
It might not be
possibly
him, but
blocked
it's
that
like
out.
it's somebody from that
Oh
generation.
no, James Woods. I think you're thinking of.
I think I am thinking of James
Okay,
Woods.
phew. Yeah,
Yes,
let's
yes,
not throw
yes, yes.
Connor the bus here.
I knew there was some James out there soiling my name. Just
Yeah,
can't remember
James
which
Woods.
one. Yep. James Woods. It's okay if James Woods does it. I don't care about James Woods at all. But I don't want James Caan to be that guy.
He's done other icky things too besides supporting Trump. So,
Really?
oh yeah,
I don't. We don't have to get into that here, but
you have Google.
I do have Google. You're right. I'll just take your word for it. I'll just believe you that he's not
Yeah.
a super nice guy.
Well, are you guys ready for the big reveal of what movie Galen and I saw in the theater today? His first one, and it's almost 2 years to the date. We actually saw the last time he saw a movie in the theater was February 29th, a leap year of all, in 2020.
Can I get one more guess?
Go for it.
Encanto.
That's a good guess, but no. We have Encanto has played multiple times in this household.
That's why I was wondering if maybe you just wanted to give him a big screen experience with it or something, even though
No.
you'd already seen it.
I already pay for Encanto at home. I need to pay for it in the theater too. All right, drum roll, please. Wow,
That was
I set
No.
you up, James, and
Was it Toy Story 3?
no, it was. Oh, it was Boss Baby: Family Business. I forgot what it was called.
Is that a new movie that's out?
I came out last year. Yeah, it's a
okay.
or it's a 2021 movie.
This is a throwback movie.
It was. The tickets were $3,
Nice.
and with my $5 Magical Movie Rewards credits, the whole thing cost me $1.64 before snacks.
And the snacks cost you $30, right?
Well, only because I bought the reusable bucket. I did the
Man.
math. And if you use the reusable bucket 6 times, it pays for itself. And that 7th one, you're basically getting free popcorn.
That's bold to assume we're not going to get another wave and you're going to go 6 times.
I mean, I've used it once. I'm going to go see next week's movie. That's 2 right there. I'm
Sure.
2 in, and I've got 10 more months to go.
Kyle, you're raising him bougie. I didn't get snacks in a theater until I was like 28.
Oh, well. I just
Wow.
love my child more than your parents loved you.
My
Yeah, I raise them like, no, we don't buy those snacks. We bring our own bucket.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I saw a movie in theaters this weekend as well, and we'll get to it.
Yeah, I did not include. I keep on saying Big Boss Baby: Family Business on my top 10 last 10 because there are other more interesting movies I want to talk about.
Sure. That being said, I enjoyed the first Boss Baby.
Really?
I'm not gonna say it was the best movie I've ever seen, but as far as kids movies go, there are definitely far worse than the original Boss Baby. So I'm curious, did you see the original versus the
I
sequel, or
did.
is the sequel the first one you've seen?
No, I'm now fully invested into the Boss Baby extended universe.
Mm-hmm. But you hate both of them,
BBU.
evidently.
I enjoyed this one more. I also slept more during this one, so that could be part of my enjoyment for it.
Sure.
Um,
Nice.
I thought Boss Baby had an interesting idea of like a baby shows up and this kid with an overactive imagination imagines that like this kid's the boss of that family. I'm like, okay, that's a very interesting like Pixar take on a new child to the family. But then nope, it's an actual literal boss baby from some weird boss or baby heaven factory. And like this is dumb. So instead of taking like the whimsical Pixar approach of like, yeah, let's just, what if this new baby is like the boss? It's like, no, it's a literal boss voiced by Alec Baldwin.
You're
don't know,
trying to get 11 movies.
What?
No.
He's trying to get 11 movies into his top 10.
My number 11 is Boss Baby, Family Business. 2020 movie directed by Mark McGrady, starring James Marsden, Alec Baldwin.
I watched it because I wanted to have seen all the DreamWorks animated movies.
Okay.
Since I accomplished that at one point, I haven't exactly been trying to keep up with it. Should I watch Boss Baby Part 2? Whatever the Part 2 was. I forget what you just said, but
Family Business.
right.
I think if you liked the first Boss Baby, then you should watch it. And it does have a Jeff Goldblum voice character. So if you're a Bloom head, what are Goldblum fans called?
I don't know.
Goldies.
Goldies. Okay, if you're a Goldie,
That's not a
then
thing.
A gold
it is
digger?
now.
A gold digger. I don't think so.
You dig Goldblum. Man.
I'll probably pass, but maybe someday I'll have to recapture my every DreamWorks animated. I'll have to watch more. But
Yeah, I used to have the IMDb top 250, and now I'm like 15 movies out or something.
It is Boss Baby:
Boss
Family
Baby
Business,
got
one that you're
added to
missing.
it?
I'll check.
Okay, I hope not.
I doubt it.
All right. Well, welcome to the podcast, guys. It's episode 519. Last episode, I think we talked for like 50 minutes before we actually got into the meat of the potatoes of the episode. And so we're not going to do that this time. And since we're 15 minutes in, let's move into the housekeeping before this goes a little too far. Did you guys hear that? Or was that way too low?
I heard it. It was like a whisper.
There we go. See,
Yep,
I have
there
it on
it
the
is.
soundboard. So housekeeping. There's a video version of this podcast on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Cinereelists, and find us there. And you can watch the podcast while you listen to it. You could also support us on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. Support the podcast, get extra after show audio. You could leave us an Apple Podcast review on Apple Podcasts. We'd appreciate that as well. Or also, you can send us a listener email to heyguys@cinereelists.com, REEL, with an S on the end. Send us a comment, a question, a list suggestion, a movie suggestion, a game suggestion, a complaint, anything you want to send us, you can send us to that email address, heyguys@cinereelists.com, and we will discuss it on the podcast. With that, are you guys ready to jump into this week's top 10 last 10?
Oh yeah.
I'm so ready.
Awesome.
Yes.
Amazing enthusiasm. Thank you guys.
James, let's do this.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for.
Let's rank some movies, preferably the last 10 we saw.
James, you have
less.
all those little audio buttons. You don't have one for the last 10 top 10 theme song?
No,
No.
Ah,
I don't. I got this
too
one.
bad.
Hey, what's up, party people?
How's that?
No, please never use that one again.
No.
All right, I won't.
Do you know that now Megan says no to me often when we're talking because of this podcast?
I do know that. Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone knows that.
All I can say is mission accomplished.
Yes.
All right, let's jump into it. This is the top 10 last 10.
Top 10, top 10, and top 10, last 10, last 10, and a last 10, last 10, and top 10, top 10, and top 10, and top 10, last 10, last 10, and last 10, and last 10, and top 10.
This is a feature of this podcast that we've been doing since almost the very beginning. It's such a good segment. Other podcasts have actually stolen it from us with permission. Zach, why don't you describe to the listeners what a top 10 last 10 is?
All right. A last 10 top 10 is where we take the last 10 movies we've seen and we rank them against each other 1 through 10. The beauty of the list is usually these movies have nothing to do with each other and have never appeared on a list before together. But for the sole reason that they are the last 10 that we've seen, they make the cut. And so we start at number 10, the worst movie we've seen of the last 10, and we go up to number 1.
Pretty much exactly how I would have said it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice.
All right, let's get started. Who wants to go first? Kyle? Who?
Sure,
Zach?
I'll go first. Zach, you want to go first?
I don't care.
I'll go
I
first.
just don't want silence.
I will kick things off. All right. So I just want to start by saying that I liked every movie on my list. There's this rumor going around in this podcast that I don't like movies.
Well, yeah, when you get to pick them, you're gonna like them all.
No, I did not pick every movie on this list.
Oh, okay. What does that
Yeah.
mean? You just
That
hit the
was-
random button on Netflix. Have you guys noticed the random button on Netflix?
Yeah.
now?
I have
I've
seen the
that.
random. I've never used it.
Have
I'm
you?
not
Yeah,
going-
I'm curious to
No.
know how accurate it
It'll
would be.
play TV shows, which is the worst idea.
like a random season and episode of a TV show.
Like of a show you haven't watched before. If it just did movies, that would be one thing. But to start a TV show, no.
Wait.
not doing
It'll
that.
start a TV show, or it'll be like a show you've never watched in the middle of season 3. Like all
A
of
show
sudden
you've
it'll-
never watched, season 1, episode 1, or
Oh,
the
okay.
latest season.
That doesn't
episode
bother
1.
me as much as like
But,
if
like,
it just randomly threw you into a TV show.
Who
mid-season.
commits? So the random thing, who commits? Okay, I'm going to make this one random decision that's going to affect the next 16 hours of my TV watching. No one does that.
I think the people younger than us, and I'm talking like maybe even like 30 and below, are much more down with watching TV than movies.
I'm much more down. I love TV.
You
Like,
just don't want it to surprise you.
Well,
You don't like
it's-
surprise TV.
It's just it's asking a lot to say, oh, we think you're going to watch this entire season of a TV show you never heard of.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, I mean,
you don't know. Like you might just watch 2 episodes and you like it or you don't. You move on. I don't think no one's hitting the random button and saying, "Well, okay, and then for the next 10 hours, I'm stuck here till I finish season 1."
Do you guys use like My List and stuff like that, where you can just add things that you might want to watch someday?
No, I don't know what that is.
No, I have a note on Apple.
Yeah, Netflix has a feature where you can just mark things.
Oh,
like, I'm
my
interested
list
in
on
this.
Netflix.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh,
I definitely,
yeah, yes.
definitely use that.
Yeah, of course
So-
use that.
I just wish the random feature just randomized that.
Like within your queue.
Yeah, I mean, those are things I want to see.
Mhm.
For some reason, they've been sitting in there for 3 years. Just randomly pull it up and maybe I will get to it.
Yeah. Do you know what often is the the reason why things lasted in there for so long? Is they probably changed the thumbnail since the time that I liked it, like that I added to the list, and now it doesn't interest me at all because it's a different
You
thumbnail.
don't recognize it.
It's just like, oh, I don't want to see this. It's two people, not one person.
So you're easily swayed by the nail?
Do you know about Netflix and how they choose thumbnails?
Yes, I do.
It's a
It's a
science. It's
Oh,
an
yeah.
algorithm.
For
Yeah,
sure. And like and they're testing them out. Like they're seeing which ones
constantly.
stick
Yeah,
and yep.
yeah,
For
and it's
sure.
very good at what it does.
The YouTuber Mr. Beast who like gets insane. He gets like 20 million plus views per
Yeah.
video.
Yeah.
He claims that he changes his thumbnail 5 to 10 times every video before they settle on one.
I read that.
Really?
Which is
Wow.
crazy to me. That
Well-
YouTubers do the same thing.
Well, with his type of income, I think it's worth doing.
Sure. Oh yeah. I'm sure he probably just has a team of people who just work on thumbnails and they're just like
Yeah.
constantly testing. Even for old videos, I've heard he'll replace a thumbnail just to give it like a pop in the algorithm.
Yeah.
It's crazy. All right. Who did we decide is going first?
Kyle.
We
Kyle.
decided me. Yeah.
All right.
We were
Go
so
for it.
close to keeping on track. So close. All right. So anyway, I like all the movies on my list, and I did not pick every single one that I watched. I think that's the statement I was making before we get into it.
You said that.
Perfect. Making very clear. My number 10 is a 2021 movie directed by George Clooney called The Tender Bar. And I think the best way to describe this movie would be hillbilly elegy set on Long Island.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
That is not appealing at
Okay,
all.
well, maybe I said that poorly, but it's kind of the same idea. It's about a fatherless boy who's kind of raised by his family on Long Island, and he aspires to break away from his, the surroundings and the life that his family members are all in, and try to get to. I think in this case, it's Yale. Right, get to the Ivy League school. So it's this is a true story. It's a memoir. It's kind of told in that same style. It is better than Hillbilly Elegy for multiple reasons. Number one, the acting is much better. The emotions are a lot less overwrought. There is no Glenn Close in heavy old lady makeup.
That was the only good part of Hillbilly Elegy.
No, Glenn Close was good. The makeup was not.
You didn't think so?
I don't think it was that great. No,
I thought it looked real. I was like, Glenn Close. Wow.
more like
Haven't seen her
Glenn
in a while.
Farr.
Oh dear.
That sounded terrible coming
Ah.
out, and I just committed to it. Anyway.
No.
What's that? The buzzer noise.
Yeah, the beep. Nope. But
Saying no to that joke.
by far, the best part of this movie is Ben Affleck, who plays the uncle who owns the bar of the Tender Bar. That's what it's called, Tender Bar. And he becomes the surrogate father to this boy and is giving out wisdom and, life lessons. And he's like in the first third of the movie and the final third of the movie. And he was definitely missed in that middle because he was the best part. And I like seeing that Ben Affleck is kind of having a bit of a career renaissance right now. And he's kind of finding his place as a dramatic actor and doing well, but also having fun with things like Last Duel. And I'm kind of on board for seeing more Ben Affleck in my future.
I'm over him.
Really?
Just direct. It's fine. I don't need to see you on screen anymore.
I
You didn't
we
like
do
him
it
in
on
Last
screen.
Duel?
He was fine, but I mean, there were other people that could have done what he did in that movie. In my opinion.
True. True. Very true.
I did like him in The Way Back. I think that's a movie that not everybody could have done, but knowing his personal background, I think that movie works really well with him in the lead. I haven't seen The Tender Bar, so maybe there's similar things, but yeah, I think he needs to go away for a little while. And then maybe when he's like in his 60s, he can come back and just be a totally different presence on camera. I don't know.
Nah, I
guess
think
I'm alone
I think
in
he's
this.
left that tabloid persona behind.
Oh, you mean the
Or-
one that he happens when he dates J-Lo, like he's currently doing?
Yeah, but I don't. I feel like there's not all the maybe tabloids have changed, or maybe I just don't pay attention as much. But I feel like there's a lot less attention on Benifer than there was 15 years ago.
I think that's true, and I think tabloid culture has suffered like most online
Hmm.
advertising has suffered, like most websites have suffered, compared to like the mid-aughts. Social media kind of killed the paparazzi because you take the photo and it's not like your website has the photo anymore. Social media has it, and then it goes anywhere,
Yeah,
it's going to
you're
go.
not making money
So,
on it.
yeah, but Ben Affleck, I don't know why he's with J-Lo again. We don't have to speculate on his personal life. I'm just seems like a strange rehab plan.
James,
Like
this
one of
seemed
the
like
things you claim to have driven you to be
yeah.
an alcoholic, you like come back to. It doesn't seem. I'm not saying she made him an alcoholic. I'm saying the pressure of public life he's blamed his alcoholism on. So maybe don't date famous people, especially the ones that probably made you into a tabloid darling. I don't know. That's just me.
James, I think this is an appropriate time for us to debut that new segment we've been talking about off air, our
Mhm.
gossip corner. So would you like to play the theme song for that?
I would like to play the theme song.
For those who love it, I question your sanity.
There
All
you
right.
go. There's
And
your
that was
theme
the
song.
gossip corner
Yep.
with James.
I'll go next. My number 10 is from 1999. It's a drama. It's a biographical drama called Rogue Trader. Trader, as in stock market trader. And it stars Ewan McGregor and Anna Friel. And it's the true story of Nick Leeson, who is a British guy who ended up going to, I'm forgetting, Indonesia to work the stock market in Indonesia. This is in the 80s, I think, late 80s. So you started having all these like international stock markets, and then these banks, including British banks, would send representatives to actually trade on the stock floors and see if they could make money in those trading groups. And so he gets sent there. He goes there. He trains local people how to trade stocks, and then has like a team on the floor. And it's basically like a mini Wall Street, but like the vision of Wall Street that you remember from the 70s and 80s, where it's just a bunch of guy on the floors, like throwing receipts at each other and waving them around, which they still do. But this is like a mini version of that. Anyway, this guy, the reason why he's famous is because he made a ton of money doing this in Indonesia. And then towards the end of his run of making a ton of money, they find out that it's like a big house of cards, and he was basically just fudging all the numbers.
Oh.
And it literally bankrupt like a giant British bank because they had put a ton of money into this program because he was doing so well down there, and they didn't know that all the numbers were like massaged to death. So I gave it a 1.5 because it was pretty brutal. I think like Ewan McGregor and the story I just told you kind of sounds like a somewhat winning combination, right? I mean, it's like 1999. This is train spotting era for Ewan McGregor. He's right against being in episode 1 of Star Wars.
Mhm.
He's probably the height of, McGregor mania for sure. And so I thought, hey, this will be fun to watch. And I was wrong. It's not fun to watch. Pretty boring and overacted and pretty brutal, I would say. There were like maybe 2 high points, but there were just the rest of it was just a slog for sure. And so many lovemaking scenes. And I was just like, why? Why is this in the movie? because it's absolutely not why I watched it. I don't know. Maybe Ewan McGregor, McGregor Mania, that's what the people wanted to see. But I was just like, I don't understand why this plot line is in here. But it was my number 10.
Nice. My number 10 is, first of all, I liked all the movies on my list as well. So there's no stinkers.
It's because you picked them all.
La di da.
My number 10 is a film that we have talked about on the show, minus me because I wasn't on the episode. But I've caught up with the film. It's Chloe Zhao's 2021 The Eternals.
Oh yeah,
Although possibly just called Eternals, not The Eternals.
it's just Eternals.
just Eternals.
I believe it's Marvel's Eternals.
On IMDb, it's just Eternals. This movie, parts of it I kind of liked, and parts of it I was fine with. This movie was cheesy in some ways, and also most of the characters I didn't care anything about. But it's still fun to watch in a fair bit of it. Here's what I think. I think I was more enthusiastic about this movie after I watched it than I am now. Now in retrospect, I don't care. But I do remember liking it when I just finished it. But now I don't care, actually. I'm looking through the cast list and I just don't care about any of these characters actually at all.
Yeah, there's literally nobody in that movie where I'm like, I can't wait to see what happens to them next.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
there's
sure.
literally nobody.
You don't want to find out what happens to the eternal being that looks like an 11-year-old girl?
Not really.
Oh, they were the worst.
Sprite.
And also now, I mean, I'm not going to spoil it or anything, but they treat like what their plan is and what they need to save the earth from as the no-brainer. I don't know if that's the no-brainer that they think it is. It's kind of a tough call, but they're definitely, I don't know, being selfish, I think. A little bit selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Eternals is a movie where when James and I reviewed it, I liked it. And if we were to review it again, I'd have a much different opinion. I've just have soured on that movie. I don't know why I have thought about it since I saw it, but it was not as enjoyable or good as I thought it was at the time.
Well, anyway, it's my number 10.
I don't think I've soured on it. If you put a list of all the Marvel movies in front of me, I'd be like, yep, Eternals. Didn't hate it. Didn't love it. It's just like, it's like it never happened.
Oh, I'm sure they'll bring it back.
I don't know. I'm not so sure. I think maybe they might have bigger fish to fry in the long run.
They won't fold it somehow into the MCU in the future and whatever.
I'm sure they will feel an obligation to do that. But I don't know.
All right. My number 9 is a 2022, the first and only official 2022 movie I've seen so far, rom-com called I Want You Back. This is starring Jenny Slate and Charlie Day, and they are two people who were in separate relationships and were dumped around the same time, maybe on the same day. Jenny Slate was dating Scott Eastwood, and Charlie Day was dating Gina Rodriguez. And Jenny Slate and Charlie Day become friends and then decide that they are going to befriend their exes and convince their exes to get back together with them, if that makes sense. Kind of convoluted. This being a rom-com, obviously you can figure out what direction all things go in with that. And then the exes, the new people they date, are Manny Jacinto, who is on The Good Place, who's hilarious, and then Clark Bacco, who I recognize, but I can't tell you what else I've seen her in before. So I mean, this movie it's cute, it's funny. It actually has a couple set pieces I thought were genuinely funny, not like chuckle funny, but laugh out loud funny. Scott Eastwood, who I'm not a big fan of, like in the Fast and Furious movies, he's kind of a wet piece of cardboard. He was watchable in this when he's kind of playing, goofy guy. I thought that worked for me. Charlie Day, who is someone I would tell you annoyed the crap out of me before this movie, somehow worked as a leading man. And I don't know if he was tamping down his Charlie Dayness or what exactly the alchemy that happens, but I was not annoyed watching Charlie Day in this movie because he obviously he gets a lot of face time. And then Jenny Slate is funny. I've always been a fan of her work, so happy to see her in that. So yeah, I think we've always joked about dudes talking rom coms. I think this is definitely a very watchable rom com that people can enjoy.
It's a rom com for dudes.
I don't think it's for dudes. I think it's just a rom com for people. Didn't feel like it was, a Katherine Heigl rom com or something like that.
Mm. You're saying those are only for women?
I don't know. I've never seen those, but in those a dime a dozen when I was in college. I assumed I was not the market for those.
Sure. I'm into it. I'll watch anything Jenny Slate does. Not anything, but she's she's one of the leads in this, right?
She's one of the leads, yeah. So she gets a lot of FaceTime. It's on Prime,
Sure.
so it's easy to watch.
Have you seen Obvious Child?
I have not. That's been on my watch list forever.
Just see it.
It's like 80 minutes. I just need to commit to seeing it. I don't know
It's
why I
good.
keep avoiding it.
You'll laugh, guaranteed.
Okay,
Well,
looking forward to
not
it.
going to guarantee, but good, likely, strong, somewhat likely.
A strong, somewhat likely laugh from James. Thanks.
Strong, somewhat likely. My number 9, also a 2022 movie. This one's in theaters. It's Uncharted, the video game adaptation. It's starring Tom Holland, aka Spider-Man, and Mark Wahlberg, amongst others, and directed by Ruben Fleischer, who is the Zombieland guy. And never played the video games. Have watched people play segments of the video games. And it seemed pretty interesting. I mean, it's basically like Indiana Jones, the video game, if Indiana Jones, just murdered everybody, basically.
Oh.
Just because that's kind of what the game is. You're like running around just shooting bad guys constantly. And the movie was okay. I didn't really have a problem with it, but I also don't think I will remember much of it in the long run because it was just very expected, I would say. Like there was nothing unexpected in it. Like the only thing I admired a little bit about it is when it occasionally felt like a decent combination of Mission Impossible and Indiana Jones. Like some of the things that were happening were just like so kind of fantastical, not fantastical. Mission Impossible, some of the things are impossible by name, and also the things that are happening on the screen. But
Yeah.
but yet it still feels like it's rooted in a reality. It's not Fast and Furious ridiculous. It's somewhere in the middle there. That's where this one lived too. Like I didn't think it was like Fast and Furious ridiculous, but it also wasn't Indiana Jones realistic. So I liked when it hit that sweet spot. But again, all of it just kind of felt like going through the motions on a formula. And that's not a great place for your movie to sit for somebody watching it. It's also interesting to note that this movie took so long to make that Mark Wahlberg was originally cast in the lead role, and then eventually he aged out of it.
Yeah.
And they put him in the supporting role because it took like over a decade to actually get it made. And then the other thing that was crazy to me is that there was a Sony logo at the beginning of it that kind of seemed like an MCU or a DC logo. And I think they're trying to make their own universe or something. And I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know what that universe would be. Like, no, it was like Uncharted, God of War, like all the Sony exclusive.
Oh, yeah.
Published by Sony games in one intro. And so I don't know what that would culminate to, like most universes do. Like you wouldn't have the guy from God of War, whatever his name is, Manos or something like that.
Ares?
Ares. You wouldn't have him in a
Artos?
movie with the guy from Uncharted, although that might make sense, those two together. but like Jax and Daxter and, you know, Spyro the Dragon. I don't know how you're going to mix all these properties eventually, but I had never seen that before. So yeah, I didn't hate watching this movie, but nobody has to run out and go see it. That's for sure. My number 9.
Nice. Okay, my number 9 is a documentary on HBO Max. No, on Apple TV. Apple Plus. What's it called?
Apple TV Plus.
Apple TV.
Apple TV
Plus.
Plus.
That's the streamer. Yeah.
Called The Velvet Underground. And it is about the Velvet Underground, the rock band. And the reason I watched it is announcement. I have restarted Music 101.
Yay.
So that is happening again. And the
By
album
restarted, you mean you started from the beginning and you're
No, I started where I left off.
Okay.
And the album that I left off on is The Velvet Underground and Nico, which is their debut album in 1967. And so I listened to that this past week for the first time ever. And it was awesome. I loved it. Really good. And I'm going to start a band inspired by that album. Anyway, so when I saw that there was a 2021 documentary on Apple TV Plus, I was excited to see it because it, you know, when I listen to the album, if you don't know what Music 101 is, a friend and I are listening to the 101 greatest albums of all time, according to like a compiled list that we made from all these, you know, authoritative sources that make lists like this, like, you know, Pitchfork and Rolling Stone and all that. And we're going through it chronologically. So we started, you know, in the 50s, I guess. And then now we're at 67. And now it's going to start moving very slowly because there's going to be like 5 albums in 67, 6 albums in 68. But yeah, first time listening to Velvet Underground and Nico, really great album. You guys both have heard it, right?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
I have never heard a full Velvet Underground album.
Really?
No. Never really, just haven't gotten into them. No reason why not. Just haven't gotten to it.
Zach, do you listen to the mono or stereo mix?
It felt stereo. I'm gonna say stereo.
Okay, so
a lot of there's some droning in it. So, but I feel like stereo.
Okay, so it was probably the remaster then.
Yeah, but I've listened to it in several different sources, so I may have heard different like eras of the album.
Cool.
But yeah, by the time I got to Venus and Furs, I was like, this is awesome. Anyways, the documentary is artsy. I probably would have preferred a more straightforward documentary that just told me about the band. This was very much a documentary in the style that like Andy Warhol might have made a documentary about the Velvet Underground. And that was interesting too. And it featured a lot of their music and had a lot of interviews and stuff like that. But it was more an artistic experience than it was an informative experience. And so that's why it's low on my list. But I definitely enjoyed watching it. And so, yeah. And I'm excited to start Music 101 again.
What's next then after Velvet Underground?
Oh, that's a good question. I would need to look that up.
All right. You look that up.
I can do that soon.
And I will talk about my number 8 while you do that. My number 8 is a 1976 movie called Murder by Death. And this is a satire of the murder mansion mystery stories, you know, mostly done by like Agatha Christie and who's the guy who wrote all the noirs in the 40s and the 30s? I can't think of his name right now.
Sherlock Holmes?
No, Richard. Anyway, it may come to me at some random points in this podcast. No. Chamberlain. I can't pull the name. It is a name that not Wilt. Yes, Wilt to the Stilt.
Wilt Chamberlain.
No, it was a name that I definitely brought up last week, and it's completely escaped me this week. Chiwetel Ejiofor. Oh, I didn't get the name wrong. I just can't think of it.
Lockridge Castle.
No. He worked on like Sunset Boulevard and worked with Billy Wilder and all those movies. Anyway, he wrote Double Indemnity. He's one of he wrote the book for Double Indemnity.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll get there. So this is a parody, a satire of Agatha Christie and this other guy's style of murder mysteries, especially
James Cain.
No,
James
I'll figure it out.
Caan?
Let's move on. You look up your band.
I already
Your
have my
album.
band.
Okay, all right.
That was you.
So this movie has a stacked cast. Buckle your seatbelts. Here we go. Alec Guinness, David Niven, Maggie Smith, Peter Sellers, Peter Falk, Eileen Brennan. Let's see, Elsa Lancaster, who played Katie Nana in the original Mary Poppins, Truman Capote, and then James Cromwell in his very first movie is in this too. And most of these actors are playing sort of takes on famous detectives. So, for example, there's someone who's doing their own take on Hercule Poirot. I think that's played by, I can't see that, James Coco. He's doing his take on Poirot. You have Elsa Lancaster's doing her take on Miss Marple. Peter Falk is doing a Sam Spade take, though he's called Sam Diamond, and he's hilarious. Like, he's just delivering all this hard-boiled noir narration through the entire movie, and it is some of the funniest stuff I've ever heard, because it's like, on its face, it's hard. It's like that noir narration, and then you listen to what he's saying, and it is ridiculous. He cracked me up. And then Peter Sellers, he was probably the most problematic because he is in yellowface for this movie. He's playing a Chinese detective called Sidney Wang. And I did some more digging into it, and he is actually doing a parody on a character called Charlie Chan, who is a detective who is also played by a white actor. So I wonder if Peter Sellers is parodying the fact that there's a white actor playing an Asian character, but instead of like putting a pin on it, just still lead into the stereotype aspect of it. So it's one of those things where if it is parody, it's maybe a little too subtle, and it seems more like Peter Sellers just playing an Asian character.
Racist.
Yeah, being a little racist. Yeah. The one thing that they do point out is he often talks in like the old stereotype way of like not using thes and prepositions, and then people will be like complete sentences. So like at least that's kind of like a joke throughout it. But that was the one character I'm like, this is not aging well. And then some of the jokes themselves haven't aged as well, being in 1976. I would say if you like Clue, this is not as good as Clue, but definitely in the same vein. And you can enjoy this very similarly to a movie like Clue.
It's one I want to watch.
I think you should watch it.
Clue, available on YouTube right now for free.
For free, that's right.
Yeah. If you haven't seen Clue before, go see Clue. Then go see, what was the name of the movie you just talked about?
Murder by Death.
Murder by Death.
Yeah.
So it's not like a I don't know, Spaceballs style spoof. It's like it's a legit murder mystery movie that all the characters happen to be like caricatures from literature of these types of movies.
Yeah. I wouldn't call it legit murder mystery per se. Like it's definitely it's spoofing the entire concept of the murder mystery, but
while
it's
also
not
being a murder mystery.
Yeah, but it's not like Mel Brooks, A Joke a Minute either.
Sure. I'm into it. My number 8 from 2022. This movie's on Netflix. It came listener recommended to me, so I watched it. This was recommended to me by Justin. The movie is titled The House. Got to this one pretty fast because the poster intrigued me. It's a stop motion anthology. So it's a set of 3 stories that take place over the course of the 97-minute runtime. So, it kind of plays like 3 30-minute short films, and they're connected in that, 1, they're stop motion, 2, they center around a house, but not the same house. So like each story happens to have a house in it, but it's not like the same house. And the stop motion characters actually change a little bit in style, but mostly in what type of characters they are, as far as like whether they're human. In one segment they're humans, in another segment they are rats, and in the last segment they are cats, like anthropomorphized cats and rats, and then humans. And they're all different tones, I would say. And it's almost like they just gave 3 different filmmakers money to make a stop motion short, but probably gave them the same production team, but then didn't tell them they had to like make anything cohesive or anything like that. And so, as with a lot of anthologies, you end up with kind of lopsided storytelling, some great, some not so great. And that's the problem here, I would say, is that you have 3 segments. 1, I did not like. 2, I did not care about. And 3, I loved. I mean, like, if the last segment in this anthology was the entire movie, this would be 5 stars for me.
Really?
Because it was really beautiful and awesome and well executed. And I'm sure the other 2 have things for other people, but they did not work for me. Especially in comparison to how well it worked. The third one worked for me. So I'm going to give this, I think we chastised Justin for like asking us to watch it for him. I think my official recommendation, which he has to take, he has to watch it now, is that he doesn't have to watch all of it, since it is 3 separate stories that aren't really linked in any real tangible way other than they take place in a house and they're stop motion. But he does have to at least watch the third one, or else he's in violation of the rules. So the third one is the one with the cats, just in case you're playing along. Check that one out, and it will be worth your 30 minutes. The other 2, it's your gamble. The first one's very dark. I was worried about, like, if this was the first one and they were going to continue to get darker, then I was not on board. Because I think the first one is like starts at like a Coraline level. And a lot of people consider Coraline pretty dark. But it was like as dark as Coraline gets in the first segment. And so I was like, oh, okay, so this is going to get really dark. And that's not where it goes. And I was, that's not why I like the third one. But I was happy that it just didn't get to be like, okay, I'm watching a stop motion horror movie now. So that's where it lies. My number 8.
Cool. My number 8 is a documentary called Patrice O'Neal, Killing is Easy. And this is a documentary about the late stand-up comedian named Patrice O'Neal. Are either of you familiar with him?
It's a very familiar name.
I am. I've seen, I remember when he used to do podcasts and stuff like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. He was kind of a comedian that never like hit it huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was always kind of on the precipice of breaking big. But he never did, and then he died. From like he was diabetic, and it was, complications from that, I think.
He was definitely overweight.
For sure. Yeah.
Yep.
He's so super funny, right? So the documentary is called Killing is Easy. Because he would say, and this is kind of a metaphor for his career, he could absolutely bring down a house. It was easy for him to get everyone laughing. But he had this like just weird principled code that he lived by, where he wasn't going to say anything he didn't believe. Like he absolutely would not play the game And in Hollywood and like entertainment, you kind of have to play the game in certain rooms in order to get ahead. And he would never do that. And um, so if he had to like kiss up to some producer, he just wouldn't. And he shot himself in the foot so many times and just never like made it to the next level kind of a thing. Um anyways, documentaries about him. It has his wife, it has all these comedians. I mean, Bill Burr was like obsessed with him. A lot of comedians, he was like their favorite comedian. Um, but yeah, he was always an interesting guy because I mean, I've seen his specials before and they're super funny. And also like he's pretty misogynistic. He just has this worldview about men and women that is very specific about what he believes. And and yeah, so that's interesting how much of that takes up in his comedy. But he just has a disarming way that he jokes around. So he can say outlandish things, and I don't know. I guess good comedians can do that. But yeah, if you like Patrice O'Neill, I would definitely check this out. And if you've never heard Patrice O'Neill, I would just Google his special, his Comedy Central special, and you'll or like a clip from it, and you'll get a good sense of who he is.
I just looked him up and I definitely recognize his face and remember
Yeah.
seeing him in things. But
Yeah.
I can't point to one specific.
Yeah, totally.
Quick side question, Zach. What is the album for next week?
Oh yeah, it's The Doors, self-titled album, The Doors.
Oh, The Doors. Oh,
Yeah. And this is great. So far it's all bands that like I'm, have a passing familiarity with. I've definitely heard their music, whatever. The Doors is the first band that like I have actively been a fan of since high school. Like I'm very familiar with the Doors discography, and so I'm excited to listen to their first album again.
I was
Oh.
so ready for you to say The Doors is the first band that I've never heard a song from or something like that. I was like, absolutely, you've heard a Doors song. There's not a chance you have not heard a Doors song.
No, I love the Doors. The Doors are fantastic.
So, Zach, my Doors obsession in high school rubbed off on you a little bit?
No, I think you got that from me.
I got the Doors obsession from you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, if you can prove otherwise.
We'll see. I don't know. How many Jim Morrison blankets did you wrap yourself up in at night?
I mean, you fell hard after you learned about the Doors from me.
After I
I'll
learned
get
the Doors
that.
from you, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When I was in Paris, I visited a cemetery that had Jim Morrison's grave.
Yep. Père Lachaise.
And there was only two graves that had barriers around them, and his was one of them. And his was it was a pretty sad looking grave. I'll tell you that.
Well, it's because the bust was stolen in like the 90s.
Was it?
Yeah, there used to be on his grave a bust of his head,
Sure.
and that was stolen.
Yeah. For some reason, people like throw trash on his grave. I don't know why.
Like I remember there being like cigarettes on the grave.
Yeah,
Is it just
cigarettes.
trash.
Okay. I think they just hang out by it, and so it ends up just being really trashy
Yeah.
around it. And then the other one was an author. I'm forgetting the name of him.
Was it Hunchback Victor Hugo?
No, he I don't remember. I'll come up with it at some point.
Alexander Dumas. Was that it?
Nope.
Nope. Okay.
Nope. Kyle.
Speaking
What's
of
your number 7?
authors, Raymond Chandler. He's the guy who created the Philip Marlowe character. That's who I was trying to pull for a name.
All right.
Okay. But we're not talking about that anymore. We're talking about my number 7, which is it's technically a 2020 movie, but I'm pretty sure everyone saw this in 2021 and considered it a 2021 movie. And this is Zola. This movie starring Taylor Page and Riley Keough. I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. So you can just...
Riley Keough?
Is that how you pronounce it?
Schweidel
Just
Elijah
follow
Four.
me. Yep, there we go. Thank you. All right. And this is a mostly true story that was adapted from a Twitter thread from like 2015, I think it was. the real life Taylor Page character, who goes by Zola, wrote this like 140 tweet long thread about this crazy weekend she had in Florida, and eventually got adapted into this movie. So I'll kind of give you the basic gist of it, because it is a truly crazy story. I'm sure it's not all true. I'm sure there's some embellishment both on the movie side and on the original storyteller side, but it's still a incredible story. So Taylor Page's character plays a waitress and part-time exotic dancer who befriends Riley Keough, who is a full-time exotic dancer, and Riley's character convinces Taylor's character that they should travel. I think they're living like Alabama or something. They should travel to Florida together and dance for the weekend and make a ton of money. And they're gonna go there with Riley Keough's character's boyfriend and her roommates. And I put roommates in air quotes for those of you who are just listening to the podcast. And when they arrive in Florida, at least for the Taylor Page character, it is not the situation she was expecting. And it is truly a crazy weekend that she has in Florida, trying to both keep herself safe and get out of there alive and safely. So I mean, this movie is definitely it's rated R. It is a hard R. There is nudity in it. There is sex in it. There is exotic dancing. It deals with human trafficking, so it can be a tough movie at times to watch. But it's also a incredibly well acted and told story. I was completely engaged the whole time. There's these characters that you get introduced to, which are like these can't be real, and then you find out that these are real people, and it's just I don't know, sometimes you realize that the life that you live is way different than the life that other people sometimes experience and the characters they run into. The only reason this isn't higher is just because of some of the themes it deals with. It can be a tough watch at times, but I definitely think it's worth the watch. And I'm shocked that this movie did not receive a Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay, because I don't know of any movie that's been adapted from a Twitter thread that's been as successful as this one.
Sure. I can't think of another movie that's been adapted from a Twitter thread.
I mean, all I can think of is the William Shatner Stuff My Dad Says, which is like, based off a Twitter account. That was the movie, that was a TV show.
Right. Yeah. There's been a couple movies that show the B word in Apartment 23 or something like that.
Oh, Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment. That was from Twitter?
Yeah, pretty sure that was a Twitter thing.
Okay.
As well. There's been 2 or 3 TV shows, but I think Zola is the only movie that I've heard of. I enjoyed that movie as well, but that's definitely a capital A adult movie.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
For sure. That's an A24 movie.
yeah. That's a good point. Yep.
My number, what are we on? 7 is from 1977, the year I was born. This movie that was released in 1977 is titled Black Sunday. It's an American political thriller. Have you guys ever seen Black Sunday?
No.
It's a John Frankenheimer movie who directed The Manchurian Candidate, amongst others, probably most famously that movie. Stars Robert Shaw, Bruce Dern, a bunch of other people. And it's the movie about the terrorist incident, the fictional terrorist incident where somebody flew a blimp into an active football game and then exploded the blimp, which never happened. But in this movie,
fictional as in like urban legend, or fictional as in just is made up for this movie?
Fictional as in they made it up for this movie.
Okay. I thought maybe that was like one of those urban legends. Like, do you know about the time that?
No. Nope. Just somebody dreamed up like, hey, what if somebody stole the Goodyear blimp and then attached a bomb to it, and then in the middle of a football game, it landed on the 50-yard line and exploded and like took out the whole stadium. And then they made a movie about that potential terrorist plot, I guess. So this movie, I really enjoyed the back half of this movie, but the front half was brutal. I mean, the setup before they actually get to like the blimp action is just, it was hard to watch. I mean, the movie definitely feels like a movie that was made in the 70s. And then you combine that with like a 2-hour, 20-minute runtime, and it just took forever to get to something that didn't feel like I was watching a 70s television show that just wouldn't end, basically, and would never come to like be anything in the end. And it does, but it takes like a solid hour and a half for you to get to the main plot of the movie. And that was hard to sit through. That's why it's so low on my list. I know some people consider this like somewhat a classic political thriller. And maybe the politics I just don't care about because it was so long ago. I'm sure some of it applies today, but it's a lot about like the Vietnam War and Palestinian terrorists and how all those things related. And I don't even know if the history is well represented here. I don't know enough about it for sure. But it was just a lot of love triangles, and it's just like, oh, this is not what I signed up for. And then when they get to the actual plot and it becomes more of like a political action thriller, then it was easier to pay attention to because it just wasn't all set up. And I like the back half, but I can't recommend it for most people because you really have to just
Is the movie about a blimp that blows up and the aftermath of that, or is it about a blimp that might blow up and they're trying to stop it?
it's about the first half. A good portion of the first half is the terrorists and the motivation of those terrorists for coming up with the plot of stealing a blimp and doing this. Then there's a little section where they start introducing a bunch of police and investigators and people like that. And then they collide those two in the last third of the movie while the blimp is like getting its bomb and getting stolen from the Goodwill blimp people and, flying it to the stadium, which blimps do not move quickly. So it's the kind of thing where like you have to do all these things and not get caught because they're just going to shoot you out of the sky, basically, which would be very easy to do. And there's a cool segment at the end where there's a guy hanging off a blimp and like there's helicopters, all this other crazy stuff, and you can definitely tell when they're cutting to green screen stuff, but there was really a guy like hanging off a blimp, and all the helicopter stunts where guys are like hanging from helicopters, like they legitimately did that stuff, and that was fun to watch. But again, you just have to sit through so much to get there that that's why it's that low on my list.
Cool. James, two other people that are buried alongside Jim Morrison. I'm wondering if one of them is who you're thinking of. One is Chopin.
Nope.
The other is Oscar Wilde.
It is Oscar Wilde.
Oscar Wilde.
And Oscar Wilde, they put a like glass enclosure around it, like some like society of poets or something like that paid to have a glass structure put around it so that it wouldn't get all trash like the Morrison one did. And now the big thing is for women to go there and like gob on the lipstick and then kiss the glass. So there's like all these kiss marks all over the glass, which is weird. But yeah, I guess if you're into that, you want to kiss the glass of Oscar Wilde's grave.
I'm good.
I tried to kiss Jim Morrison's grave, and that security guard was like,
You know what was weird is when I went, I had heard that it gets kind of crazy there, and so all the recommendations were like, go in the morning, just go first thing in the morning because it's peaceful. By the afternoon, there's crowds and stuff like that, and so I went first thing in the morning, and I don't know if I like mistimed it or something like that, but like the front gate was not open. And so I was like, all right, well, I'll just kill time and come back and see if they open. And so I started walking, and then I turned a corner, and then there was this other gate that was open. And so I just walked in. And then I walked around and I think I saw 2 people in the 2 hours I was there. I think maybe they weren't open at all. And I'm assuming, like, I left at noon, that maybe they weren't going to be open at all that day, period. But nobody ever said anything to me. I don't know. It was weird.
Maybe they were ghosts you saw.
Yeah,
Just a
maybe.
theory.
Okay. This is great. My number 7 is a movie called The Palindromists. Although they
What?
do the palindromists,
Exactly.
they do talk in the movie though if there's a debate among the palindromist community if it should be pronounced palindromist or palindromist.
Oh, palindrome. Okay.
Yes. So this is a documentary about the World Palindrome Competition, where the best palindrome writers from around the world come and compete in a 2-day palindrome contest. And I had if you don't care about word word games,
Wordplay.
yeah, then this movie has nothing for you. But if you think it's fun listening to people geek out about an obscure hobby,
Oh, so there's no like competition intrigue here going or anything?
oh, there definitely is for sure. But
because I don't
you
give a
have to-
crap about spelling bees either, but yet I can watch a whole documentary about it. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, there's definitely that. And you don't know who's going to win. And, there's a 2-day thing and people make mistakes and there's cheating and all sorts of stuff.
all
So
right.
there's that. But I like these people just being super passionate and unapologetic about they like to make up palindromes. So the competition is, there's different tasks, but you have to create original palindromes and then the audience votes on the best ones. So that's kind of how it works.
I know our audience is smart and they know what a palindrome is, but
James doesn't.
I do. It's like a word that's spelled the same way backwards and forwards, right?
Or,
like
or a
race,
phrase or a
race car.
sentence. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
just a word.
So is some of the competition like how long you can go to make a coherent sentence, but also make
Well,
a palindrome or something?
It's not how long you can go. There's one guy that like his style is to do really long ones.
How do you judge a palindrome contest? That does
Well,
not
but
make
just
sense to me.
so palindromes can be a lot of things. Usually they're going to be sentences, right? And they can be really clever or clunky, And so you judge if a palindrome makes you laugh, if it's really clever. They give them prompts. So they'll say, you have to make a palindrome that has a movie quote in it or something like that, And so there's lots of criteria you could judge by. Before this documentary, really the only palindrome I knew at the tip of my tongue was a man, a plan, a canal, Panama.
Yeah, that's a classic.
It's like the famous one, yeah. Never, odd, or even. That's a palindrome. But this movie throws so many at you, and it's kind of amazing how many different palindromes there are, like really, really clever ones. So anyway, I had a lot of fun with it. It made me want to come up with palindromes myself. I was like, this seems like a fun hobby. There's a woman in it that says this is the perfect hobby for your husband to get into because it costs no money and it keeps him at home. I thought that was funny. Yeah. So the Palindromists is my number 7. It came out last year or in 2020.
What do they call the symbols where you can like flip it and it's the same word or something like that?
Flip it?
An ambigram?
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. I wonder if there's competitions for those too.
Maybe. That would be more like an art competition.
And Zach, that whole review was a palindrome, correct?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Nice job. Kudos to you.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the line, number 6 and beyond, between the movies that I liked, and now these are the movies that I really liked. We're getting into the really like category. And
I thought we were like every movie you really liked.
No, I liked every movie.
Oh.
But now I really like these movies. There's not a movie on this list that I dislike. That's what I'm trying to say.
All right.
That's what the Boss Baby stuff was for at the beginning. Get it out of the way at the beginning.
I
I knew it.
You got me, Zach. All right. My number 6 is a 2007 neo-noir. Actually watched this for our noir episode, but never got around to talking about it, called Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. Now, this is directed by Sidney Lumet, who I know you guys have heard of, but I'm pretty sure almost everyone listening, if they haven't heard the name, has heard of at least one of his movies, because in the 70s and a little before that too, 57, he's got like 4 near classic movies: 12 Angry Men, Dog Day Afternoon, Network, Serpico. Those are probably his 4 most famous, and then I would gather that this is probably his 5th famous, or Murder on the Orient Express, which you saw, Zach, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which you did not like?
Correct.
Okay. So, yeah. He's directed a lot, but those are probably his most famous. And this
Don't forget about The Wiz.
Oh, The Wiz. I did forget about The Wiz. Pawnbroker. There's definitely movies people have heard of that he is, and I believe this is his last movie he directed.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, like I said, this is a neo-noir. It's starring Philip Seymour Hoffman and Ethan Hawke, but also has another great cast. You also have Albert Finney in there, Marissa Tomei, Michael Shannon, Amy Ryan, and Rosemary Harris. 2 Aunt Mays are in this movie, which I don't know how often that happens.
I don't think it ever has happened before.
Well, here we go. Now and obviously it was even in 2007. It was just 1 Aunt May at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, after the fact, 2 Aunt Mays.
Who could have known Marissa Tomei was going to be an Aunt May someday?
Seriously, yeah. Seriously. So Philip Seymour Hoffman and Ethan Hawke play brothers, and they are both hard up for money for different reasons. Ethan Hawke just kind of never got his life together, and Philip Seymour Hoffman's a very famous, or not very famous, very successful business person who also has a raging drug habit that, and gets himself into his own trouble surrounding that. So Philip Seymour Hoffman suggests or plans a jewelry heist to his younger brother Ethan Hawke, kind of gets him involved in it, and says, hey, this perfect victimless crime will be the way we can solve all our financial problems. And as you can probably guess, it is not a perfect victimless crime. And this movie is dealing with both the crime itself, kind of the build up to the crime itself, and then the fallout from it. And I really don't want to get into the crime because that's kind of where the meat of the story is, and it builds a lot from that. So we'll just say it's not a victimless crime. Storytelling wise, well, if you know you're watching a neo-noir movie about a victimless crime, you can kind of tie some things forward from there. Story-wise, this is not told straightforward. There's a lot of like flashbacks, and they'll sort of tell the story from each different character's perspective. So it definitely jumps around. So you're seeing a lot of the same events, and this isn't like a Rashomon. It's not like people have different interpretations. It's everyone agrees on what's happening, at least when you watch the movie. You're just kind of seeing it through the eyes of one character, what they're seeing, and then the same event through the eyes of a different character who's seeing the same stuff. So that was kind of an interesting way. I think some people might find that annoying that it jumps around, but I thought that was actually quite interesting. It is also maybe one of the not talked about Philip Seymour Hoffman performances, because he's great in this. Like he's definitely dealing with lots of ranges of emotion as he's trying to figure out this plan and deal with the after effects, and he's both the good guy, he's the bad guy. It's really a great Philip Seymour Hoffman performance, and maybe not one that gets talked about as much as like The Master or Snack New York or some of the other movies. So I think if you're a fan of any of these actors, but especially Philip Seymour Hoffman, worth checking out.
I don't remember much about it, but I did give it 4 stars on Letterboxd when I watched it.
4 stars also.
So.
Yeah. Have you seen it, Zach?
I have not.
Okay.
Although according to IMDb, it is the 3,500th something most popular movie
ever of all movies.
Yeah, of all time.
It's not too bad.
I'm just impressed. It's kind of a random movie, but it's still in the top 4,000 most popular.
Sure.
If I had one gripe about the movie, and I don't know if it's the film or what, it looks kind of cheap at times.
It's an early digital film.
Oh, is it early digital?
It's an early digitally shot film.
Okay, so yeah, it looks kind of cheap in that sense, and like they'll be outside, and sometimes the outside shots are just overexposed, like someone was not checking the lighting or something like
Oh,
that. So
okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you can blame that on the digital side.
no, that seemed more like the crew, but
Mhm.
that's good to know that it's early digital. So
All right. My number 6 is from 2013. It's The Grand Piano, which is a thriller starring Elijah Wood and John Cusack, amongst others. And yeah, Elijah Wood plays a guy, a pianist who has a mental block and can't play the piano very well anymore. But since he plays the piano professionally and he's kind of like considered a virtuoso, he hasn't played publicly in like 4 or 5 years or something like that. And so he's now having like a comeback concert. And he's about to take the stage when an assassin gets a hold of him and is like, "You don't screw up. You playing the piano or I'm going to kill your wife," or something like that. And so the whole movie is like him sitting at the piano trying not to screw up while a guy in his ear, because he has like, you know, one of those little radio Bluetooth things in his ear, the bad guy is basically talking him through the performance. And so you wonder why this guy is so angry at this pianist and why he's doing this to him. And of course, there's like a bigger motivation that I won't go into. But yeah, it's kind of like a thriller, a low budge thriller with a ticking time clock attached to it. And I mean, it's fun garbage to watch, but that's pretty much where it begins and ends. It is like no bigger redeeming value other than to see how this ends up, type of thing. And then where it ends up is felt kind of anticlimactic. And then they like put a little weird stinger on. I think Zach, you've seen this, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember the stinger to it? Like
No.
after kind of the finale? Yeah. That I'm pretty sure I'm gonna forget it too. And yet the movie kind of ends, and then like there's a good 3 to 4 minutes after that. And in the moment I was like, I wonder why they didn't just end it where it was at. But they don't. I enjoyed it. And if you're just looking to waste, 90 minutes including credits while you're making dinner or something, this is a fun one to watch for sure. It reminded me of like 90s disposable thrillers. I think it's very much in that vein. And I think most people would enjoy this. And if you don't, it'll be over soon.
Yeah. Okay, my number 6 is the most beloved movie of all time. It's Paddington 2.
Oh.
no, it's not 100% anymore.
Yeah, that's true. This was the last movie I needed to see in order to see the Reddit top 250
Oh, nice.
favorite movies. So I've now completed that list. Yeah, and this movie's undeniably charming. It's obviously not the greatest movie ever made, but it's very non-offensive and very easy to watch. And what's his name? Hugh Grant is great in this, playing against type, I would say. And I enjoyed it a lot. And interestingly, in connection with the latest news, is the voice of Paddington in the Ukraine is the president of Ukraine.
Oh, it's Zelensky, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Really?
He's the voice actor of Paddington in Ukraine.
Because he was a comedian actor before he was president.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Oh, you mean he does the Ukrainian voice for Ukrainians? Not he did
Yes.
the voice of Paddington for the world.
Yeah,
For-
correct.
for-
Yeah,
yeah,
this
right.
is for the Ukrainian language version of Paddington.
That makes way more sense than what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Zach, I understood what you were saying the first time.
Thank you, Kyle.
Okay.
I did not. What I like, I love that movie. Obviously, we've talked about it a bunch. But what I really find interesting about that movie is that they take the Wes Anderson formula
Mm-hmm.
and made it commercial without ruining it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
True.
It's almost like better than a lot of Wes Anderson stuff of recent years.
Oh, it's not almost.
Because
It is better.
It's not afraid to be commercial. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's watchable. Whereas some Wes Anderson stuff in recent years is a little much to take. Paddington goes the opposite direction.
Agreed.
Is Reddit no longer doing their top 250? I don't think they made the
Correct.
list since
Yeah, they haven't updated it since like, I think 2019.
2019. So
Yeah.
not
The
that it's
pandemic killed it, or what?
maybe, or maybe. I mean, I don't think it was. It was probably just a community effort. I don't think there was an official.
I thought it was like one dude who kind of like did all
Exactly.
the work.
I think it was a
Maybe-
moderator that got behind it, and they just maybe they don't have that moderator anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
Who knows? It's a lot of work.
Yeah, and it's not like the be all end all list. It's definitely a list that suffers from recency bias. But I always thought it was an interesting list to go through and keep up with.
I mean, it's a well enough known list in movie circles to like get talked about in magazines and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Really, what I'm bothered by is that they haven't updated the AFI Top 100.
Yeah, it's been over a decade now.
Yeah.
I was really hoping they would do it 10 years later.
I think the last time, wasn't it like 2007?
Yeah, it was. Yes.
So it's like, come on, guys. I don't think the AFI has even put out any lists in a couple years.
Well, nothing's come out since then, so
no significant movies of American note have come out since 2007.
right.
All right. My number 5 is another noir, and this is not a neo-noir, but an actual movie from the noir period. Consider it a noir film, but maybe not your stereotypical noir. I'll stop saying noir now. This is Ace in the Hole from 1951, directed by my favorite director statistically, Billy Wilder. This movie is starring Kirk Douglas, and I am a Kirk Douglas fan. I've been watching more of his movies recently, and he's definitely a complicated person, especially his life, his personal life. But also as an actor, I find him very interesting to watch, and then kind of what he did for Hollywood during the blacklist and the communist fright. I thought was a very interesting part of his legacy too. So I'm fascinated by Kirk Douglas. All things about him. In this movie, Kirk Douglas is playing a reporter who has kind of bounced around from big city to big city. Not able to. He's a great reporter, but can't land a stable job just because of his own personality quirks. And he's working in Albuquerque, in 1950s in a small time newspaper, trying to like catch his big break. And he learns that in the next town over, a man is trapped in a mine. Like a mine, he was exploring in that mine. I think he was trying to dig up like Native American pottery. The mine collapsed on him, and this guy is now stuck. And Kirk Douglas, being this ace reporter, knows that he can turn this story into his next big break. So he arrives on the scene and starts influencing things around the tragedy to make it last as long as possible, so he can milk it for everything it's worth. So for example, there's a plan to rescue the man, and it will take 18 hours, and he convinces the foreman to use a 6-day rescue plan instead, a much more complicated one, but one that's both more bombastic and can also extend the time that this man's in the mine, so he can really make a big story out of it. And it turns into a literal circus after a while. So it's a fascinating movie to watch, to see how this, what is kind of a scummy character, is trying to manipulate this entire situation for his own personal benefit, even though he's glad handing everyone around him. And I would say this movie heavily influenced something like Nightcrawler, the Jake Gyllenhaal movie, also about a reporter trying to create his own news. So if you liked Nightcrawler and want to see a predecessor to that, I would definitely check out Ace in the Hole. And you also get to see a movie directed by one of the greatest directors ever.
Yeah, it's a great movie. It's really good.
It's one that I had not known I was missing from. Like, it's one of the great movies I didn't know I had not seen. That makes sense.
Never heard of it.
I don't know, James, if
Or
you
its
would.
alternate title,
What's the alternate title?
The Big Carnival.
That okay?
I'm-
Yeah, that be. I think neither is a great name.
I've never
James,
heard it called that.
James, this is not a
Supposedly,
stage.
it was released in 1951 as The Big Carnival. It stayed that until Criterion released it on DVD in July of 2007. Then it reverted to its original title, Ace in the Hole.
Oh, interesting. James, I don't know if you like this or not, because it's not a stage play. Like, definitely a lot of it takes place outdoors, on location, but it is 1950s back and forth dialogue.
You mean people talk to each other in this movie?
Yeah, but kind of in like that rat-a-tat kind of way.
Oh, okay. In the specific noirish kind of way.
Yeah.
So they're all
So-
going, see here, see.
No,
Stuff like
they're
that.
not like 30s gangsters. Now you see here. But
my number 5 is
yeah.
an HBO Max exclusive titled Kimmy. This is a Steven Soderbergh joint, his latest streaming exclusive movie. Seems to be the only place he releases movies these days, is on streaming services. But I think he likes it that way because he doesn't have to think about box office. But Kimmy is a thriller that I enjoyed. I enjoyed my time with this. It stars Zoe Kravitz. She is not the only person in the movie, but she's definitely the main person in the movie because she plays a remote worker who has been in her apartment since the start of the pandemic and basically never leaves. She's a hypochondriac, and so the COVID-19 pandemic has made her like a complete shut-in. She won't even go see the dentist because she's afraid to leave her door. Meanwhile, the rest of her neighborhood, and I'm assuming the country, are like coming out of COVID-19, and so she's starting to get pressure from people to like leave her place, and she's just like not into it at all. So the job that she works for is very much like an Alexa type company. They don't say Amazon. It's not an Alexa, but it's a little speaker that you speak to and you say, okay, Kimmy, I want you to do this. And then the automation in your home does the thing. I'm sure you guys have experience with this. So she works for the company who owns Kimmy, the speaker, the smart speaker. And the gimmick with Kimmy is it's machine learning assisted by humans. So when you tell Kimmy to do something for you, if it doesn't understand it, then somebody will review your request later on and like train it to know what you're looking for so that it will over time understand. So she is, for her remote work, listens to these requests and then tries to train the system to understand what the request really was. And then she hears something in one of these requests that concerns her, thus the thriller part of the movie. And I enjoyed it. It's very much a low budget movie. Maybe not low budget. One location, so it's contained and probably didn't cost a lot of money. It was filmed in the middle of COVID, so it was one woman for the most part in an apartment, and so they didn't have to have a bunch of actors. And it is much like what's the name of that Spike Lee movie that's
Her?
like what?
Her?
No. Spike Lee,
Oh.
not Spike Jones. Spike Lee, 13th Hour. You know, 13th Hour has 9/11 in it, but it's not
25th
about
Hour?
25th Hour.
Okay.
What am I thinking? 13th.
You're thinking the 13th Warrior with Antonio
maybe.
Banderas?
Not that's definitely not
Crichton?
what I was thinking of. But yeah, 13 Ghosts. I think that's what I was thinking of.
Oh, okay.
So
13 going on 30?
yes, 25th Hour is a movie that has 9/11 in it, but it's not about 9/11. This movie is the first COVID movie that has COVID in it, that has the pandemic in it, that the pandemic's not part of the plot.
Mhm.
It's there, it's affecting the people's lives in the movie, but it's not about that. It just happens to take place in type of thing. And I really liked that. I think it was played subtly enough, and like the pandemic is never a other than her being a shut-in, which she already was. This just exacerbated it. Um, it doesn't really come into play a whole lot, and it also has like a little bit of a Rear Window feel to it, and that scenario and people being not wanting to go outside during the pandemic, especially the early days of the pandemic, just is like right for that kind of story, right? Where you're just like, if you're in a city, you're looking out your window at your neighbors and you're looking in their windows and stuff like that. Anyway, I enjoyed it. I thought it was great and well, good. I don't know about great. It was fun. It's 89 minutes with credits, so much like the grand piano, this one is not going to like change your outlook on life, but it's a fun thriller. My number 5.
Cool. My number 5 was a host suggestion. It is a 2020 apocalyptic survival movie called Greenland.
Nice.
And James recommended this broadly to the world, and it stars Gerard Butler. And he's basically he's like a skyscraper engineer. You know, he designs skyscrapers. And there's
An architect?
He's not even an architect. He's like a foreman.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, so he's building them.
Project lead.
Like a contractor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
For skyscrapers specifically.
Right.
Anyways, there's an asteroid that is going to hit Earth.
Wait, it's a Gerard Butler movie with an asteroid?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, I'll stop.
And he gets a text that says, like, you've been selected to go to this protected area in Greenland. I guess you're one of the VIPs of the world, you know. And so he and his family have to make it there. And yeah, this movie's fun. I don't know. I like a good survive the apocalypse movie. And for the most part, a lot of it seemed fairly realistic. You know, a little heightened drama, I would say. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, it's exactly what I was hoping it would be. I'll say that.
Right.
If you need your like Roland Emmerich fix, it's maybe a little bit less epic than a Roland Emmerich film might be, but you certainly get your man battling against the end of the world kind of a thing. And there's no like supernatural aliens or any, you know, nonsense or like mystical technology. It's just like, okay, how do I get to Greenland where I have the best shot of surviving this thing? So yeah, I liked it. I think James was good to clue us into Greenland.
So Zach, they've already greenlit a Greenland 2. Are you into it?
Spoiler.
Well, it's gonna be very different than Greenland 1, I would say.
Well, you've seen Greenland 1, so
Yeah, I'm into it.
okay.
Bring it on.
So there's still a Greenland at the end of Greenland?
Well, there'll always be a Greenland.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you ever seen a disaster movie before? I mean, they didn't buck the trend and just murder everybody on the planet. No, they didn't do that at the end of Greenland.
Like
Spoiler
at the end of Tower Inferno, the tower's gone.
Right, but the people didn't die in it.
Well, I mean, people died in it. Just
I'm
not
talking
the
about the
characters
people
we
you
were
were following through the
Okay, yeah.
movie.
So I'm sure of the 7 billion people on the planet, some of them died during the movie of Greenland.
But sure,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah, of natural causes, maybe.
And
If an
nothing
asteroid
else.
hits Earth, would you say your death is due to natural causes?
No, I think it's due to the asteroid.
Yeah, but that's a natural thing.
Well, I mean, natural cause is such a. I don't think there's such thing as dying of natural causes. Like there is a cause for all death.
Well, you've heard that as a phrase,
Yeah.
though, right?
Yeah, but it's not a real thing.
I thought
Like,
natural causes is like they know it wasn't suicide, murder,
yeah.
or a specific health thing. So instead of going through an autopsy, they just put natural causes.
Your body just got
So like
kinda
if you get mauled by a lion, is that natural causes?
No, you know, you got mauled by a lion.
Right.
If you die in a tsunami, you don't say, however many people in the Philippines died of natural causes. They died of
You're considering natural causes as like literally what those words mean versus
Yeah.
what they use them as. They use them,
Okay.
as
No, Zach's is one of these people where he wants to change all the coronavirus deaths to natural causes. He's like, it's a virus. It's natural. Can't be nature."
Well, it makes sense. I mean, unless like Kyle, you think it's engineered in China, then I guess it wouldn't be natural
Well,
causes.
of course, it's in a Wuhan lab, so it can't be natural causes. Let me send you the YouTube link. Ergo, you are a member. You are unknowingly a part of mass psychosis.
Yeah.
All right. My number 4 is also a James recommendation.
wow.
So, James, you
Ball
are
the
you
ball.
are
Gonna give
batting
him an
2
ego.
so far, batting 100. Oh, baseball terms, batting 1, batting 1,000. That's it. It's batting 1,000.
Batting 100. James doing very poorly.
Anyway, this is Shiva Baby, which is
Oh.
another technically 2020 movie, but everyone saw it in 2021. And yeah, this is a movie about a college age woman who has a sugar daddy on the side who supports her financially, and she has to attend a shiva, which is is that like a Jewish wake? Am I correct?
Yeah.
Mhm.
On that, okay. And at this shiva, she is then now has to face her relatives who want to know about how her life's going, what her future is. She has an ex-girlfriend who's there who wants to, keep the friendship going. And then of course the sugar daddy himself shows up. And it is basically following this woman for 78 minutes as she is just in a cringy situation, both for her and the people around her. And sometimes she is, at taking the worst of the cringe, and other times she's the one who's kind of taking control of the whole situation. But if you like cringe comedy and want to see people being uncomfortable in a humorous way for a movie, this is definitely a movie worth checking out. I don't have a lot more to say about it because that's kind of it, but it's done very well. It's just a really enjoyable movie to watch, and there's a lot of little things going on that you can enjoy.
I agree. I mean, that movie's all about performance for me. And
Yep.
I forget the lead actress's name, but she's super good in it.
Rachel Sennett.
That sounds right.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I look at this cast list and I don't recognize any of these names.
Yeah. My number 4 is another movie that I watched on HBO Max from 2021. It's The King's Men,
Number 4.
which is my number 4. This movie really surprised me. I think I saw The Kingsman and I liked that movie. And then I saw The Kingsman, The Golden Circle, I think was the second one. And I was like, I'm out. I was like, it was not what I liked about the first one. It was too, I don't know. I think I was over it by then. I think the Kingsman, the first one, was kind of like a spy movie with less holds barred than a 007 movie or a Mission Impossible movie or any of the other spy movie franchises that we got at the time.
And kind of satirize them too.
Yeah, a little bit.
While
also being it. Yeah. Yeah. And but it was also like a rated R movie. The fighting was way more violent than you would get in 007 or Mission Impossible. And it was also kind of funny, and I enjoyed all those things about it. And then in part 2, it just got goofy and dumb and still like over the top violent, but like way, way worse over the top. And I was out. So when The King's Man came out, which is a prequel to the first Kingsman, basically like if you know anything about the Kingsman movies, there's this society of spies called the Kingsmen. So in the Kingsmen from a few years ago, it's an established organization. In the King's Man, which is the prequel that just came out, it's like, how was this organization started? Why was it founded? What are the origins? So King's Man brings you back to like World War II era type time period, and there is no secret society. There's just a guy who is embroiled in something, and then over the course of the movie he kind of like forms this group of spies, like collects them into a group, and then by the end of the movie you officially have a group of spies called the Kingsman. And it worked so much better for me. I mean, like, just forget the stuff set today. Just that story's done. I don't need to see any more of what they were brewing there, and just make me a trilogy of these movies set in this time period, because it very much felt like Indiana Jones-ish, 007-ish, with great action choreography. Because of the specific time setting, you didn't have to have like all these weird futuristic weapons or anything like that. They're all just like sword fighting and shooting like normal 1940s guns at each other and stuff like that. And there's also two main bad guys, and the first one is a Russian named Rasputin. By far my favorite spy movie bad guy that I've seen in the last 10 years. He was
Is it
so
like
much
the
fun to
real
watch.
Rasputin?
It's supposed to be yeah, I mean the character is the real Rasputin, but it's obviously a very fictionalized version of him, because he's like super occulty, and
That's the real Rasputin.
Yeah, yeah. That's,
sure. I mean, I don't know what the real Rasputin was like, but you have to see the movie, I would say, to know why he was fun to watch. He's just
Who plays him?
way over the top. I don't even know. That's a good question. I should give him the props. But there's like this extended sword fight with this guy, and it's one of the most fun sword fights I've seen filmed in the last decade, I would say. It's just super fun scene where they're moving around a room, and this Rasputin guy is like literally Soviet dancing in the middle of the fight. It was awesome. Like, my one criticism with the movie, the reason why it's not even higher on my list, is because that character disappears for most of the back half of the movie. And then you kind of have the other bad guy who's interesting, but just not as fun to watch as he is. And so it's slowed down a little bit mid-movie awkwardly, but I really had a lot of fun with this. And I think if you forget, even if you enjoyed the first Kingsman, nobody enjoyed the second, but even if you enjoyed the first Kingsman, don't even worry about that. If you've never even seen the first Kingsman, don't even worry about that. If you just want to have a fun adventure movie, definitely rated R. Still more violent than 007 and Mission Impossible, but not grossly violent. Not like Nightmare Alley. Ugh, what a gross movie.
yeah, what a gross movie. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, like, acceptable, action violence. That's what you're going to get here. And yeah, I was shocked that I enjoyed it, but I did. My number 4.
James, this is a rhetorical question,
Mhm.
but I kind of want to see this movie, and what I really hope is that they kill Rasputin at the end, but they take like the 20 attempts to kill him that it took, as legend goes, to actually get him to die.
Interesting. I obviously don't know as much about Rasputin as you guys do.
Oh yeah,
Because I didn't even know he was like an occult guy.
supposedly, and Zach, you can jump in here. Supposedly, like the Tsar or the people they wanted to kill him, so they poisoned him, and that didn't work. And then they stabbed him, and that didn't work. And then he was like attacked by a bear, and that didn't work. And then
He
they
was
tried to
shot,
drown. He was shot,
drowned, yeah.
drowned, yeah. And like it was, but it seemed to be like all. I don't know if that was all like in the course of one night it all happened, or just over years. But I like the idea of just like an extended death scene where they just keep trying all these ways to kill him and he just won't die.
Rasputin was played by Rhys Ifans, who was in
Notting Hill.
He was in Notting Hill. He was in Harry
Hugh Grant.
Potter.
Okay, yeah.
He was the lizard in the first Amazing Spider-Man movie.
Oh, he's
The lizard guy.
Yeah, he's also the guy from the 5-Year Engagement, the professor.
Sure.
That's where I know him most from. So
Yep. He's absolutely unrecognizable in this movie.
Wow,
But
yeah.
like in the best of ways. It's just like
not like Lizard Man unrecognizable.
not like Lizard Man
Okay.
unrecognizable. Just like you won't look at him and think Rhys Ifans because he's one head to toe long hair and beard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he just does not look like what I imagine Rhys Ifans looks like. And two, he's just so good as Rasputin that you won't even think about him being anybody other than him. Anyway, my number 4.
Cool. My number 4 is on Netflix. It is The Tinder Swindler. I don't know if you guys have seen this or watched it.
I'm ignoring it on my dashboard.
Don't. It's good. It's a fun watch.
I feel like I'll get to it, but tell me about it.
So it's interviewing a bunch of women, primarily focuses on 3 of them. And they're describing, they all matched with the same guy on Tinder. And this guy was like the son of a diamond magnate. Everything he does, he's like uber wealthy, like a billionaire, right? And for each of them, he like love bombs them essentially. Like they have really intense conversations. He seems like the most interesting guy in the world. And then he offers to fly them out to some exotic place. He picks them up in a private jet. They fly out to, Naples for a night and have these crazy expensive dinners. They are with at crazy expensive hotels, amazing cars, incredible clothes. Like they're just completely blown away that a man that is clearly a billionaire is infatuated with them. And some of these women have relationships with him for 6 months, where every other weekend he's flying them out to wherever he is, and they have this lavish weekend or whatever. And then, he makes up a reason that he needs them to quick send him some money. And these women end up giving him hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it turns out that this guy is completely broke, except he does this constantly to a rotating parade of women, and they are paying for his lifestyle that is conning the next woman. And so he blows $50,000 a night, and this is just from women that he gets 50 grand from after like 4 months of conning them. And it's incredibly interesting how they are taken in, at what lengths he goes to, and then the movie becomes about like, well, can we catch this guy? And I had a lot of fun with this. This one is it's really it really centers around 3 very good subjects. Like these 3 women make for really good documentary subjects. This guy obviously is super intriguing just because of he takes catfishing and scamming to just a whole nother level. So yeah, The Tinder Swindler on Netflix.
And he says a doc, not a narrative.
It's a doc.
Okay.
True story with an ending.
Good. So it's not just, will we catch him?
Yeah.
Find out next year. Speaking of catfishing, did you know that James' beard is just a filter?
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yep.
If he moves too fast, it kind of lags behind him a little bit. So. All right. My number 3 is a 2021 movie. Is streaming on Hulu right now. Spencer, directed by Pablo Larraín. This is starring Kristen Stewart as Princess Diana, and it is about a weekend in 1991, Christmas weekend, where she is spending time with the royal family, and she has decided at this point in her life that her marriage is over, and that spending time with this family is the last thing she wants to do. And it's watching her mentally unravel over the next couple days as she has to deal with the pressures of being with the royal family, going through all of the ceremony and tradition, and also n- both knowing and wondering what the family think about her, knowing that her husband's in a affair, knowing that she is a media a tabloid presence that brings attention to the royal family. um I mean, this movie is lives and dies by Kristen Stewart's performance, and thankfully she puts in an incredible performance, so much for the fact that I knew it was Kristen Stewart, but at the same time I did not recognize that I was watching Kristen Stewart act. Like, she just encompasses Princess Diana so well that she gets completely lost in the character. Um, and I was just enthralled by watching Pablo Larraín's direction. James, when you talked about this movie, you kind of mentioned that it's a horror movie without
Mhm.
the scares, and that's very true, right? You are. I mean, this is if anything, a psychological horror movie, as you're just kind of watching her fall apart over this weekend, and no one cares that she's losing it because, right,
Because
it's
it
the
makes them
crown.
look bad.
It makes them look bad, and
Mhm.
they're at service not to themselves, but they're service to the people, to the crown,
Mhm.
etc. And there's sort of this attitude of like, suck it up and deal with it.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, so much. There are other people in this movie, like Sally Hawkins, Timothy Squall, Sean Harris, um, and those are the people who probably talk the most besides Kristen Stewart and maybe the actors who play her sons. But everyone else, like, you see the queen, you see her husband, you see the rest of the family, they barely talk at all. It really is the Kristen Stewart Princess Diana show throughout.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, I think this is only nomination is for best actress, correct? Any other nods to my knowledge?
Didn't get a costuming nod
I
or something like that.
I
I'd be
was shocked to
shocked.
get costuming just because they were recreating, the outfits so effectively or
It
so
didn't get
perfectly.
that?
I don't think so. I think it just got actress.
Wow.
I mean, we're not gonna find out until we get to the pre-taped part anyway. So, oh, Zach, that reminds me. Is your friend doing the Oscar ballot again this year?
I'll have to ask. I don't know.
Okay, that would be cool to do. If he does, that'd be fun to do again.
Yeah.
All right, my number 3 is from 2016. It's a listener suggestion. I don't remember who suggested this. This one has been on the list for a while, I would say. And I finally got to it, and I'm glad I did. I think part of my resistance is the name of the movie is A Dark Song. And part of my resistance is that it was a movie I'd never heard of, and one that is about like a ritual. It seemed to be like about Satan or something, and the poster is like a pentagram on the ground, and I was just like, ugh, this looks like a horror movie that I don't know. I don't love horror movies that are all about like serious meditations on like rituals and Ouija boards and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just not typically my thing. So I dragged my heels on watching this one, and then when I watched it, there's a reason why it has 91% on Rotten Tomatoes because it's really good and not in the ways that I think I dislike movies like this, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like it's a very mature version of that type of movie. It's not a version that exists to scare the crap out of you or have demons come out of the ground and drag people into the floorboards, or you know what I mean? Like none of the cliched things that I expected to happen in this movie happened. Um, it was very much like, what if somebody could actually perform a ritual? And what if a woman who recently lost a child wants to speak to her child, essentially? And so she goes and finds somebody who claims he can do this. And then he tells her that they're the only two that are going to be there, and he doesn't know how long it's going to take, and they're just going to go to this house and not leave it until the job is done and she gets to speak to her deceased child. And then it's these two people like in the house coexisting, and they do not mix. You know what I mean? Like, he's like this arrogant kind of nerdy guy who knows that she needs him, and she is a wealthy, attractive, with it person who had a horrible tragedy and has not been able to get her life back together. And she's put like all her marbles in the basket of him being able to get this done for her. And so it's more of a drama between these two people. And while you're watching the movie, you wonder whether this guy's just full of crap and like just stringing her along. And then things start to happen, and he's not full of crap. He can actually do things and get things done. And when the movie starts doing those things, again, I thought it was gonna like fall apart for me and become that movie that I don't like. And it absolutely didn't. It had a great ending that I was 100% not expecting from this type of movie. And I I read some reviews after of people who love this movie, and they love it because if you love the way typical horror movies end, you might hate this movie because it just does not end in a horror movie kind of way. And yeah, I mean, if they were all like this, I'd like these movies. Well, actually, if they were all like this, I probably wouldn't like this one so much because it just plays absolutely against everything you expect from it. So my number 3 was a great listener suggestion, and whoever you were out there, I appreciate it. My number 3.
Cool. My number 3 is called The Castle. It's an Australian comedy from 1997. And I stumbled upon this movie. I'd never heard of it before I watched it. I was basically looking through like some user generated film rankings, and I was searching by like popularity, like highest rated, but like something that just doesn't appear on like critical lists at all, you know.
Mm-hmm.
This one was incredibly high, and I think the reason is because it's it's known in Australia. It's like a Australian classic comedy, and nowhere else in the world has heard of this. And so I was like, well, I'm on board for a 90s Australian gem that no one's heard of. And so I watched it, and it's great. It's really funny. It's absolutely a comedy from start to end. It's it's yeah, every 10 seconds there's a witty something. You're not going to laugh every 10 seconds, but
What was the name of this?
The Castle.
The Castle.
It's about a family, a father, and he has like 4 kids. I think one of them's in jail, and a wife. And his home is his castle, basically. And he lives right on the edge of an airport. And then the city is gonna force him to sell his house so they can expand the airport. And he is gonna like basically fight his way to the top to like not have to give up his home. The movie's like heavily narrated by one of his kids. So that's definitely a style choice. Like a lot of them is like talking about his family, and then you'll cut to like, 10 seconds of we'll hear the family doing what the narrator was talking about, and it'll go back to narration. But it's actually funny like it's not annoying at all. It's funny, and it makes the whole thing move very quickly. The movie's only an hour and 25 minutes long. Yeah, for me, this was a hidden gem. As someone in America who otherwise would never hear about this movie, I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. I thought it was funny. And the main character, the dad, His name's Michael Canton. I would watch him again in something. I thought he uh, was very funny. So The Castle is my number 3.
It's also an Eric Banana movie.
Nice. Evidently, the Michael Catton, the
Yeah.
guy, the lead, he was one of the chorus members who sang on the album version of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh.
That's where I knew him.
I've heard that voice in the background before.
Yep.
That's awesome.
All right. My number 2 is a 2014 movie called Predestination. This is, I think it's safe to say this is a time travel movie. This really can't talk about this movie without at least mentioning that. But this is a time travel movie that I did not know existed until recently. And I love time travel movies. And this one thankfully lived up. That's why it's at my number 2. It's another Ethan Hawke movie. I've also made a pledge this year to watch as many Ethan Hawke movies as possible because I think he might be one of my low key favorite actors. So I'm trying to binge him this year and find out if that's true or not. And so far, it is true.
You haven't watched Tape yet, though, right?
No. I can't. I mean, I could have made a top 10 last 10 of just all Ethan Hawke movies. That would have been interesting, but
Sure.
I'll spread them out throughout the year. So Ethan Hawke plays he works for an agency that tries to prevent crime via time travel. So like they'll find there was a bombing in the 70s, so he'll travel back to try and see if he can stop it and make changes like that. I think it's called like a temporal agent or something like that. So in this case, he travels back into, I think, the 70s, early 70s, and he starts a conversation with a character played by Sarah Snook. And I'll admit, for a while, I didn't know where this movie was going because this movie spends probably a third of its runtime, and it's only 100 minutes long, on the Sarah Snook's character's background and like this very long story about, where she was born and how it all started and blah, 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 blah. And I'm kind of like, okay, like this is a really long setup for this character. What's going on? And all I gotta say is this movie totally, totally paid off for me. Zach, I know you and I have just talked a lot about time travel movies that are closed loop versus open loop.
Yeah.
And this is definitely in that closed loop where it's like a clock set in motion and everything just kind of clicks as you go. But this is maybe one of the most complicated movie clocks I have ever seen. Like,
Sure.
It's, I would say, if you're talking complicated time travel, it's up there with Primer, with just like how intricate and folding in on itself was. But it totally worked for me, and I mean, this is a movie we could definitely talk spoilers. I do not want to spoil it. I think both of you have seen this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
So all I gotta say for people listening, if you like time travel movies and you like kind of the dominoes all just sort of falling, this is right up that alley.
Yeah, I think
an
it's
interesting one.
definitely like a hidden gem. You know what I mean? Like it's not one people constantly bring up, but it's a good one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, when you said hidden gem, that just reminded me of my previous one, Spencer.
Mm-hmm.
The soundtrack on that, Johnny Greenwood,
Mm-hmm.
totally gave me hidden gems vibe. Where like there's just this constant either organ in the background or like there's a string quartet that's going from like really harmonious to discordant, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just persistent through that entire movie. And I thought that really helped heighten just the horror of Spencer also. And yeah,
Sure.
like at one point Megan was like, "This reminds me of hidden gems." Like uncut gems. My bad, uncut gems. Like she's
I knew
like,
what you were talking
I'm
about.
on edge right now. But my number 2, Predestination.
Nice. I need to revisit that. I've only seen it once, and I remember it kind of blowing my mind at the time.
Yeah, it definitely blew my mind.
I think there's been enough time that if I was to rewatch it, I would remember, the particulars as I watched it, but it would still feel like some of it's new. You know what I mean? Just because it's been a long time since I've seen it.
You would probably still have some of those wow moments as you were going through.
Yep. My number 2 is from 2022. It's the movie I saw in a movie theater this weekend, and it's called Jackass Forever. I saw the new
Alright.
Jackass movie. And I wanted to see it in a theater. I had a friend in town who was down, and we went, and it was super fun. I enjoy this movie. I like these guys, these rascals. I find them funny. Always have since the MTV days. And they put out a series of movies, all of which were financially, like beyond financially successful, because they make them for almost nothing, and then they end up making, between 50 and 100 million plus. And it's basically just a bunch of goof offs goofing off for an hour and a half.
Hmm.
And always been fascinated by the producer credit from Spike Jonze, who's
Yeah.
a pretty well respected filmmaker, and yet he comes from skateboard culture,
Yep.
much like a lot of the Jackass guys do. And yeah, I mean, there's not really much to talk about as far as like what I liked about it. It made me laugh. It made me cringe. That's what everything Jackass does. And it's been 10 years between Jackass 3D and this one, which is the longest span they've had between them. And everybody assumed that Jackass 3D was the last of these movies, and yet they're still doing it. Maybe like the one thing that's interesting about this is that they are older, and they have lost a couple cast members. One passed away, and at least one just is not in any shape to film a movie. And so on top of that, some of the other guys are older, and they just can't do the things that they used to do, or shouldn't do the things they used to do, maybe. And so they got new cast members in. And so it was interesting to see them kind of integrate those cast members and let them do their own stunts, but also have them mix in with the older guys and stuff like that. It was odd at first, but about halfway through the movie, I was like, okay, I accept this. I get it. Um, and most of the new people brought something, at least had one segment each that was funny, and like they're the reason it was funny. And I think that was as well done as it could have been, for sure. And then Johnny Knoxville is just, I mean, that guy is 50 something, and he gets hit by a bull in this movie
Oh.
and gets double backflipped, and then practically lands like on the back of his neck and ends up with a broken rib, a broken arm, and a bunch of other like minor fractures. And it's like, how long can he possibly do this? You know what I mean? Like it's just not feasible at some point to just take hits from a bull. The other thing I'll say is this might just be my selective memory. There was like a lot of nudity in this movie, all of the male persuasion. And I don't really I remember that the earlier movies had that. It was just constant in this one. I mean, like constant. And I don't know if I'm becoming a prude and the first three are the exact same formula and I just didn't clock it, and now I do. I don't know. But it was just very easy to note that there was like not it was like every other segment had something to do with that. Even if they weren't showing anything, it was somebody getting hit there or showing there. And it was like, wow, this it's kind of shocking that I guess just because it's goofing around is why it wouldn't get like a crazy NC-17 rating, because it's like literally nothing sexual about it. In fact, it's probably the opposite. And so maybe that's why, but I mean, in any other movie, this would be NC-17 just by volume of male nudity, for sure. Anyway, I laughed and I enjoyed it. That's what makes it my number 2.
Cool. Is it How's it rank in those movies for you?
I think the first one is super interesting just because they had no idea whether that would work to make a movie
Yeah.
out of that TV show. And it worked. I forget what the box office was, but it was insane. And the first one kind of feels more like the show in that
Mhm.
it does have one or two segments that are Hollywood produced. But I think in the first one they were filming on half VHS and half film.
Okay.
And then by the second one, okay, I'll just quick rank them. Number 1, number 2, number 4, number 3.
Is that bottom
Okay.
to top?
Bottom to top to bottom. So
The number one's
one,
your number one.
number 1 best,
Okay.
number 2 second best, number 4 third best. I don't really like number 3. There's only like one or two things in it that I thought were the best thing about 3 is the credit sequence. And I don't mean that to be funny. I mean, like, they did a great job at the end of 3. I think they actually thought 3 was going to be the end because the credit sequence is absolutely like what you do at the end of something. And it was like, there were people, I remember seeing that movie in a theater and there were people crying during the credit sequence because of how well executed it was. And the fact that it was like a fitting goodbye for what this was. And then 10 years passed and they made another one. Probably because a lot of them need money. But I wouldn't say they didn't earn it. You know what I mean? Like, you can see the effort and the blood on the screen, literally the blood on the screen from guys who have been doing this for a long time. And so I think that's why I would continue to see more of them if they wanted to make them.
Okay.
I have
How many more do you think they can make?
Well, I mean, if they bring old people in, I mean, if they bring new people in, I think they could continue this and just kind of make some of the older guys the ringleaders, where they do the intros and they do like the stuff that's not super dangerous. But you know, there's some stunts in here that are very well controlled that aren't really that dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But like there's a guy who's like afraid of spiders, so of course they torture him with the spider that wasn't really gonna bite him, but he's deathly afraid of spiders, and so that's what makes it funny, type of thing. Anyway, I've spoken enough on this. My number 2.
I have a quick tangential question.
Mhm.
And Zach, I think I know the answer for you, but James, I'm not sure. Do either of you guys remember the MTV show Buzzkill?
Yeah, I do.
No.
You don't remember it? Oh, I swear, Zach, we used to watch it.
It's like a
I don't
prank
remember it.
show, right? Of
Yeah,
sorts.
it was like a prank show, but also based in that whole skateboard culture.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. It's one of those shows where I can't, like, I think the intro's on YouTube, but that's it. And like maybe there's a Wikipedia entry about it. But there's surprisingly sparse amount of actual videos of like Buzzkill skits.
There's
And
a
I'm
full episode.
there is?
Season 1, episode 5.
Okay. You send that out. I mean, yeah. I would love to watch that again. I remember watching it all the time as like in high school.
This
have
does not look good.
have either of you guys ever seen a Jackass movie in a movie theater?
No.
No, I've only seen the first one, and that was like with friends. I saw it with friends in college.
It's
But-
like nothing else, I would say.
Oh, I'm sure you have to like hear everyone laughing and cringing, and I can't
Yeah, I mean,
imagine
it's
watching it by
like-
myself.
You can watch them by yourself and you'll get an effect, but it is not the same thing as seeing it in a movie theater with
Mhm.
other people because you're just in communal shock at what you're watching, basically, I would say.
Cool. Okay, my number 2 is another Australian film, but this one is from 1971 and it's called Walkabout. Have
Okay.
either of you seen this?
I've heard of it, but never seen it.
Okay.
You're on an Australian thing.
I did not realize that until I just talked about my number 2. It's directed by Nicholas Roeg, who also did Don't Look Now and The Man Who Fell to Earth. And
Oh,
this
Don't Look
is-
Now, the Donald Sutherland movie
Yes.
about the kid. Okay, yeah.
This is a very interesting movie. This is a movie that you kind of think about after you watch. It sticks with you. The basic plot is two siblings, a 14-year-old girl and her 7-year-old brother are taken by their father for a picnic in the outback of Australia. And while they're kind of getting the food together, their dad starts shooting at them. And when they hide behind a rock and he can't shoot them enough, he lights his car on fire and shoots himself in the head. And so now they are stuck in the outback, just who knows how far away from civilization. And I assume from this movie and just general what I understand about Australia is that the coasts of Australia are pretty nice, and the center of Australia is pretty difficult to live in.
Everything wants to kill you.
Yeah, and it's pretty inhospitable. So it becomes a survival movie where this girl and her brother try to get back to civilization. And then about halfway through, as they're basically dying, they meet a young Aboriginal boy, probably about 13 or 14, who is on his walkabout, which, according to the movie, is when they have to separate from their people and survive for a month alone in the outback and prove that they can become a man and survive, basically. And so that's the movie, and it goes from there, obviously. A couple things about it. So one is the way that it's shot and edited is incredibly unique and interesting. So it's not conventional. It's a movie that absolutely is trying different things cinematically that you just don't see in any other movie. It's very interesting and in your face, and it absolutely holds your attention because of how it's shot. It's hard to describe, but it's edited very quick. There's lots of unique kind of pacing and shots and stuff like that just and when this dad kills himself, it goes from 0 to 100 very quickly. And you just have this incredibly gory shot of this guy just lit on fire with the car burning behind. It's just, you're not expecting this at all, because until that moment, it's just a family on a picnic. And then this movie has a ton to say. I need to spend more time thinking about it and unpacking it, but it just has a lot to say about people and how they can interact and communicate with each other, and connections between people. And then also it's a coming of age tale, both her and the Aboriginal boy are at this age where they're at this precipice between being a child and being an adult. And yeah, thematically there's a ton going on that I would need to unpack. I read Roger Ebert's review of it, and he loved this movie, gave it 4 stars, which I think on his rating is a 4 out of 4. Yeah, so there's a lot going on. This movie's a little, I don't know, there's parts of it that felt a little leery, I thought, which was odd. It definitely plays into the theme of the fact that both these kids are coming of age and that kind of thing, but and the dad was kind of creepy. But yeah, I don't know, this movie is super interesting, for sure. I'll be thinking about it, I think, for a while. But yeah, Walkabout, my number 2.
When I watch Don't Look Now,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so Don't Look Up. I thought it was a super interesting story, but very the filmmaking made me feel very distant from the movie. Was that similar in this sense?
There's a lot that's dissonant about how it's shot and what the subject matter is.
Yeah.
But I thought in a more interesting way than in Don't Look Now.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't blown away by Don't Look Now.
Yeah, that movie's pretty dark.
Yeah.
This movie is not dark at all. It's
Okay.
almost as if Haley Mills was in in Jerry.
Oh, you're really selling me now. Bring up Jerry, and I'm there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the beginning sounds pretty dark,
Yeah. That's pretty dark.
but
I agree.
minus the murder, suicide, burning. It's pretty
Yeah.
it's pretty light after that.
Yeah. Yeah. They have a radio though,
Oh,
and the
that's
food
good.
from the picnic.
I I would love to see Ari Aster remake Don't Look Now.
Okay.
I think he could do a perfect, like, find that psychological horror in there, but and then just run with it.
Sure.
All right, that's me. I'm number one. My number one. Okay, I'm gonna tell you the year and the director. I want to see if you can guess the movie. This is a movie I've been avoiding for a long time, which I finally watched. 2006, Paul Greengrass.
You're in a Paul Greengrass kick.
No, I'm not.
United 93.
You got it.
No.
United 93. Yep.
I thought you already talked about this film.
I don't think I've ever talked. I don't think I did this one yet. Maybe I talked to you about it, Zach.
Okay.
Well, if I have put this on a top 10 last time already, I apologize. I'm gonna put it on here again.
I don't think you have.
Okay. So yeah, this is a Paul Greengrass movie about the hijacking on September 11th, 2001. And it was a movie that I wanted to see for a long time, but also didn't want to see, just because that was very traumatic day for lots of people, myself included. I was 18, first or second week of college when September 11th happened. You know, like, so you're out in the world. You're like, the world's my oyster. Anything can happen, and then literally anything did happen. It's one of the most terrible things happened, and it was definitely a traumatic day for lots of people. So not a day I was really wanting to relive, but I thought time to finally jump in. I heard it's a good movie. Check it out. And I am really glad I watched this movie, because I think it did a incredible job of telling the story of what happened on 9/11, especially to the best that we knew come 2006, both on the specific United Flight 93 as well as sort of what was happening on the ground during that day. We've heard a lot about, and we learned a lot about, kind of sort of the confusion that on that day, because plane hijackings were a thing of the past, right? No, planes were not hijacked come, in the 90s and the 2000s. So the fact that people were thinking there's a hijacking going on, there's all this confusion between ground control and air traffic control. They're not communicating well. The military's not communicating well. And I thought Paul Greengrass did an incredible job of really just showing how much confusion was happening on that day, and how we really didn't realize what was happening until after it all happened. But also then showing, to the best of his ability, what most likely happened on United Flight 93. There's since there's no survivors, there's no official accounts, but there's phone calls, there's flight recorder data, so kind of able to sort of piece together everything that happens, and then using his handheld filming style, especially on that plane, was incredibly effective to show that chaos. And to be, if anything, this movie actually made me interested in jumping and learning more about 9/11, and like maybe watching some more documentaries or reading more up about it. Now I feel like I've had enough distance from the actual event. The same thing like for me and Columbine probably 10 years ago. Like about 10 years ago, I was like, all right, I want to learn more about Columbine. I was in high school when it happens, lived through all that. Now that I've had enough distance from 9/11 and seen this movie, I'm really interested in definitely jumping more. And so I don't know if you guys have a good like movie recommendation document. Zach, you're the king of documentaries over there.
Yeah, you
There's
should
one checking out.
absolutely watch Loose Change. It's the
Loose
definitive 9/11 documentary.
Version 3.
Yeah, okay. So, but yeah, I mean, this movie did it, like it was interesting. It was brought me back to an event through new eyes. It was obviously emotionally gut wrenching to watch, but at the same time, I'm really glad I watched it. Really glad I saw it. We'll never watch it again, but still 4.5 stars.
Um, do you want a documentary to learn about 9/11, or do you just want a good 9/11 documentary?
Either
'Cause
or.
those are two different genres for me.
Yeah.
107, is that what you're thinking, James?
I'm thinking of the Netflix documentary series about 9/11.
Oh yeah, that
It's
was really good.
pretty awesome. It's like 6 hours or something like
Okay.
that. So it's going to take you through it for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
But the most visceral piece of media to come from that is the French filmmaking documentary brothers who filmed the morning. They were embedded with firefighters the morning of 9/11 in New York, filming a firefighter documentary, and then 9/11 happens.
I
And
may
so
have seen clips from that. Are they like in the lobby at one point?
they're in the lobby of the buildings before
Yeah,
they fall.
okay.
Yeah.
I've seen. I don't know if I've seen that entire movie, but I've definitely seen like that specific scene and maybe other clips from that.
Sure.
What's that one
That
called?
I think it's just called 9/11. And it's
Okay.
hard to track down because it was bought by CNN, and then I don't think they ever officially released it. They just air it a bunch.
Interesting. Okay.
And I think they even stopped doing that for the most part. They used to air it every year on 9/11, and then after 10 years or so, they were like, okay,
Yeah.
we're not doing that anymore. So, but I'll see if I can. I'm pretty sure you can find it on YouTube.
I'm sure I could. Yeah. Okay.
But-
Yeah. I'm ready to dive more in. So I'll check those out.
Cool. My number one, my favorite movie out of the last 10 that I watched, I gave a 4.5, which, to put in perspective, in 2021, I gave 5 movies a 4.5. So it's hard to get a 4.5 on my scale. It's from 2021. It's a Western titled Old Henry. Have you guys heard of this one?
I'm
No.
not.
It's great. It's it stars Tim Blake Nelson, and somehow Trace Adkins is in this, Stephen Dorff, and not a lot of like A-team batters in this one. As far as like, these are like character actors, some of which maybe you haven't seen in a while, but they're like perfect cowboys, I would say, in this movie. It's not your typical Western, which feels like such a cliche now that I've said that out loud. It's about this guy, played by Tim Blake Nelson, who has made a home for himself. His wife died, and he's raising his son, who is now a teenager, and they're just like living off the land in their small cabin that he built from scratch, with his own hands. And he keeps to himself. And meanwhile, an inciting incident happens and trouble is brought to his front door. And the rest of the movie kind of answers, how is he going to survive this trouble that arrived at his door at no fault of his own? And that's all I really want to say about the movie. If you like Westerns, you should definitely watch this. If you like, I don't know, what's that by the coward Robert, the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford.
You got there. Yeah.
Yeah. If you like those types of movies, it's not really that movie, because that movie is really slow. And Old Henry, I did not find to be slow. The vast majority of the movie takes place at this house. There's like no train robberies or horse chase scenes or anything like that. It's like a kind of a straight drama version of a Western. It's not like an action adventure or anything like that. Just a really unexpected movie for me, and a good, it's not a twist on the movie has a twist, and I don't remember many Westerns having twists. Can you think of a Western where they like actually had like a thriller twist embedded into it?
The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Never seen that,
That
but
has
I have heard of it.
twist. I'd say it was a twist to it,
Yeah,
but it's not a thriller twist.
sure. Yeah, I just really enjoyed this one, and I think if you're into westerns or any of that kind of stuff, you'll get a kick out of it too. My number one.
Well, I'm into westerns, so I gotta watch it.
Is that
Cool.
Trace Adkins, the country singer?
Yes.
Wow, I haven't heard that name in a long time.
When's the last time you heard Steven Dorff? Not since like the Blade days for me.
Oh, that's not the guy who was on his knees and played golf.
No, that was literally called Dorff.
That was his Dorff. Okay, Steven Dorff
Yeah.
was the bad guy in Blade.
Right.
Oh yeah. Okay. I thought maybe there was a cowboy on his knees making jokes.
Yeah. Tim Blake Nelson is a guy you've seen in a bunch of things.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know. I can pick him out now. Like he's one of those faces where he's one of those that guys, which
He
I
has
now
a-
put a name to that face.
Yeah, he has a character actor
Yeah.
background face, and yet in this movie he's center stage.
Yep.
And it's great. It's one of those things where like you know when somebody handed in this script, he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna knock this out of the park. This is the type of stuff nobody ever hands me, but this is perfect for me and my look and how old I currently am." It's a movie called Old Henry, where nobody expects much from him, and yet he's great in it. My number one, Zach.
Cool. Well, my number one is a very popular blockbuster film that I don't think has ever been mentioned on this show.
Really?
From 2021, and it is Free Guy. This
I've
is
seen
the-
it.
I've seen it. Yeah.
It aged out on one of my top 10 last 10s.
Same
Sure.
here. Same here.
Yeah. This stars Ryan Reynolds and Jodie Comer and Taika Waititi, and Ryan Reynolds plays an NPC character inside of a like an open world video game, and he, through a set of circumstances, it's kind of like the Lego movie where he's just this guy with kind of boundless optimism and obliviousness. He gets like sunglasses on that turns him into like a playable character kind of a thing, where he's self-directing himself. He's no longer an NPC. And then he just discovers and learns more about the world from there. And I'm not a gamer. I don't play video games really. So I was not looking forward to this movie just because I thought it would just be a bunch of inside jokes for people that play these type of games, like a Grand Theft Auto type game. And I did not find it inaccessible at all. And I laughed several times during this movie. I found it really fun. And it's fun all the way to the end. Some of my biggest laughs were in the last, 10 minutes. And I just thoroughly enjoyed this, much to my surprise. It was more, it's probably number one more because I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would. Then, I think it's the greatest movie ever made. But I had a great time with it. And I don't really have any complaints about it, except Taika Waititi's character I found pretty obnoxious.
He went a little big with that character.
Yes. And I was not there for it. Other than that, I was on board with everything.
Was he like the owner of the video game company or
Yeah,
something?
he
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. There are a lot of video game jokes and Easter eggs in that movie, but it does I think a clever job of putting them in the background. So so it is accessible to someone like who doesn't play video games. But if you have played a lot, you can also be like, the characters will be doing something in the foreground, in the background something else is happening, and you're like, oh, that's totally a reference to so and so. But it doesn't feel like it's cutting you off from the movie because it's just in the background. And I think they did a clever job of trying to work in those jokes without making them the movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
And more Jodie Comer. She's a good actor.
For sure. Did you see all the voice cameos in the movie? Tina
As, like-
Fey, Hugh Jackman, Dwayne Johnson, and John Krasinski all provided voice cameos.
Really.
Nice.
I liked his friend, Ray Howard.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the
Yeah.
actor's name? Yeah.
That's the same guy from
Bad
Get
Trip.
Out. He's the friend from Get Out.
Isn't he also the friend in Bad Trip?
Maybe.
Zach, you'd be the decider on this one.
I'm gonna say
yes.
that he
plays Bud in Bad Trip.
Okay.
Yep.
Man, that guy works. In 2021, he was in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He was in 9 movies in 2021.
Wow.
Including Judas and the Black Messiah. He's in that movie as well.
Oh, I do not remember him whatsoever being in that.
everything I've seen him in, he has shined.
Yeah, he's funny.
Have you guys seen Brittany Runs a Marathon yet?
No.
That's a good movie. I like that one. All right. That was our top 10, last 10. Well, you guys just left me hanging on that. So I just figured we'd move on.
I mean, we could talk about Brittany Runs a Marathon. Haven't seen it. I'm guessing it's about a woman named Brittany, and she probably runs a marathon.
Yeah, it's
I'm
about
guessing it's her first time ever doing that, right?
It's her first time ever doing that, and she might not be super excited about her weight, and so she thinks this will solve her problems, and it doesn't. But it's like a soft comedy that is made for women that guys can watch.
Is she also friends with?
Is targeted as to women. What?
Is she friends with Lil Ray Howard also in that movie?
Don't remember how he works in.
Okay.
But I'm sure he's great in it. If that's what you're into. That's what needs to happen for you to click play. He's great in it.
Little Rel Howery. That's his name.
Right.
I think every time I said it, I did a different combination of vowels.
Sure.
I can't believe this episode is 2.5 hours long.
I know. It's time for it to be done. Thanks for listening to episode 519 of the Cinereelists. We appreciate your listenership. Don't forget, you can always send us an email to heyguys@cinereelists.com. You can watch the video version of the podcast on YouTube. You can support us on Patreon or leave us an Apple Podcast review. You can do any of those things at any time. We encourage it. You could also follow us on social media at TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or Twitter at Cinereelists, or you could follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd at YoJRB.
You can follow me on Twitter or Letterboxd at Shaban.
You can find me on Letterboxd at PeterSKB.
We'll be back next week with a discussion about the latest Batman movie, aka The Batman. So if you want to do a little pre-watching, that's what we're going to talk about. We'll see you guys then. Keep it Cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.